Test, test, test.
Hello.
It is 9 a.m. on November 14th, 2023. And I call this meeting of the Bonner County Board of Commissioners regular business meeting to order. I am Chairman Luke Ahmet, and Commissioner Steve Bradshaw and Asia Williams are also present here today. Please rise as Pastor Mark Hammer gives an invocation. You can come to the microphone so that the people could hear you. Thank you, Pastor.
Heavenly Father, I thank you for these people as they come and they are presenting their gifts and their talents to you to lead this city that we love. And Lord, I ask that you give them wisdom. I ask that you give them unity, that you give them peace and grace. Father, may they lead our city well, making decisions well, to hear well. Father, thank you for the men and women in this room too, who have come to present concerns, ask questions. Lord, may this be the perfect environment in which humility is seen, in which we can both hear one another and make the best decisions possible so that, Father, you are glorified and that you reign supreme. We love you, and it's in your name. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you.
Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The purpose of the regular business meeting is for the Board of County Commissioners to conduct the business of Bonner County publicly. Regular business meetings do not constitute public hearings. However, at the discretion, or wherein the public has the right to be heard on every agendized item. However, at the discretion of the chair, everyone may be afforded an opportunity to speak on a particular issue if recognized by the chair. Any unrecognized comments or disruptive behavior will be grounds for removal from the board meeting by the chair and may subject the person being removed to criminal prosecution according to the law. We will now move into our public comment section. And our first speaker that is signed up is Amy Lunsford. When you approach the microphone, please state your name and please address comments to the chair, not to the audience. Thank you.
Amy Lunsford for the record. So it's been a pretty hot topic, and Asia's going to address this in her agenda later, but I just wanted to get this out here just because of the climate of the meetings. I don't want it to all fall apart before I get this out. So in a lot of the records requests, we have seen the ICCO mentioned. So then, of course, that leads me down another rabbit hole to figure out what this secret society is and who its members are. And so then you phone a friend and say, hey guys, has anybody thought about this society? Has anybody got any records requests? And of course, an awesome friend always comes through. So the request was to please provide all regarding independent county constitutional officers, or the ICCO. Also provide all communications by members of the independent constitutional county officers where they were received on Slack, and also provide the bylaws, charters, memos, and structures of the independent constitutional county officers. So big surprise, it was denied. The reason it was denied was because the records reviewed cover attorney-client privileges. So if Lewis Marshall is a part of this secret society, he can pull attorney-client privileges. Is that acceptable? And then that made me wonder, where was Steve Bradshaw's attorney-client privileges when his voicemail was released? So do these attorney-client privileges apply to everybody in the county or only people that he selects worthy? And to be clear, I am only here for transparency and I am absolutely not suicidal. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Lunsford. Our next signed up speaker is Ms. Diane Welly.
Wearing glasses. Diane Welly for the record. Commissioners, it is clear that the commission has declared war on the people in attempts to tie the hands of the only working commissioner in Bonner County. We, the people, will join this war without hesitation. Last night, I prayed that not my words, but his words be spoken. This was my answer. Before battle, one was put on their armor. I have selected the following pieces: the belt of truth, the breastplate of righteousness, the shoes of the gospel of peace, the shield of faith, the helmet of salvation, the sword of the spirit. The belt of truth will be the armor I will present to you today. Every week, I will present a different piece of the entire armor. At the executive session on 11/6/23, it was reported by civilians not in attendance that Commissioner Williams entered the session screaming profanities. Since this was an executive session and since Commissioner Williams would not have reported that herself, the only truth is that one of the other two commissioners or an employee presented this report to a member of the public. In the interest of truth, is it or is it not true that Commissioner Williams entered the session screaming profanities? Luke?
I'll answer this one. Yes, it is true that Commissioner Williams called me an asshole.
No, it is not true.
It is absolutely true.
Thank you, ma'am.
Subpoena the record.
In
from
a
the-
PRR, the attending sheriff, in a PRR, the attending sheriff will reveal that she did in fact do so. I will be making the request of his body cameras. It is reported that the executive session, you voted 2-1 to review the civil order of protection and if deemed necessary, hire a third-party attorney. Commissioner Amont, is it true that you are willing to frivolously spend our tax dollars to relitigate a lawful restraining order?
It's a
Blink, blink,
special
blink.
meeting
Okay, thank you.
For today again.
Commissioner Amont, is it my understanding that legal counsel was not present for the session on 11/6/23? Is that true?
That is true.
No answer from Amont. Is it a conflict of interest for a person with a restraining order to have a vote in nullifying the same restraining order? Blink.
Not a restraining order.
Commissioner Amont, this Board of Commissioners voted that no duly voted decision will be revisited for 90 days post-vote. Is it true that your executive session today is less than 90 days from that vote? Can't answer. Is it true that you're seeking to have all commissioner emails sent to you bypassing the other commissioners? There was no election for a king of Bonner County. You have deliberately tied the hands of Commissioner Williams by taking committees from her, just as her work is bearing fruit. On my own time, good. For instance, audits whereby she was coming close to showing some irregularities, you prevented her from finishing that work. We, the people, are quite interested in seeing that work continue. She has a very successful program going today whereby people send their concerns and ideas for informational meetings now called the Commissioner Chat. Thank you, Asia. Born of you tying her hands in business meetings, as usual, she made lemonade out of the lemons that you presented. Because my own commissioner does nothing for the community, save telling us about vacation and stating obvious things about muddy roads. And you use the time for your district to report on fires that people can read about in the paper, ride-alongs for your entertainment, and trips that you already sent department heads to, thus not attending to the needs of your own district. Commissioner Williams has reached out to people of all districts to seek their needs, thus filling the voids left from other districts that have been abandoned. By taking away her email, you will see fit to close this communication between she and the public by simply not letting those emails through. Tampering with mail is a direct threat to the people. Tampering with mail will prevent we the people from being served. You will be successful in this. Should you be successful in this endeavor, I tell you the truth that we will put in a PRR for every single email that comes to you. And we will make sure that it gets to our working commissioner by any means necessary. You've already flooded the department with PRRs of your own. Please tell them that we apologize for the work we're about to send their way. Please be aware that I am truly concerned that everyone in this room is in danger from Commissioner Bradshaw, as he has been circumventing the court order to be frisked prior to entering the building. As a result of threatening to shoot Commissioner Williams in the head, if he is so unstable as to threaten a co-commissioner, who else is he willing to shoot in the head? I too am not suicidal. Because of all the aforementioned items, another piece of armor has already been put into use. The shoes are boots of peace. As we have seen in the news from God's holy land, sometimes peace is gained only by battle. It is the truth that Commissioner Amott wishes to become somebody nobody will ever forget. I have set my feet firmly to putting a few things into motion that will bring him the attention he seeks. This past week found my husband and I quite busy. We may not see the results of those actions for many months, but I'm sure that if just one bears the right fruit, he should become quite famous just after the first of the year. Commissioner Amott's love of attention may be realized in ways he never dreamed. I will end with amen. Amen means truth. I have copies that I've already given you.
Can you submit those to the clerk, Ms. Welly? Thank you.
I even have
Wonderful. Thank you, Ms. Welly. Our next speaker, I've only got their initials, ML. Everyone will get an opportunity to speak at this. Oh, pardon. Oh. Oh, I'm going to go through the list, Mr. Moore. You will have your opportunity to speak. Mr. Dan Welly.
Daniel Welly for the record. That was a pretty hard act to follow. I wish that I could commend the commission on their conservative fiscal approach to county business, but to that point, I have to ask, why does the board not follow the advice of legal counsel? Failing to heed the advice of legal counsel is the first step in losing a court case. Yet the board has passed legislation against the advice of counsel on numerous occasions. So the question remains, why do the commissioners continually put the county in a position of defending the indefensible? It is an irresponsible handling of county resources. It is taxpayer money that is spent to defend the board's decisions. That is not responsible fiscal operations. This cannot be scapegoated among yourselves. Every time you evade the advice of legal counsel, it is on you, the individual commissioner, as you cast your vote. You are spending taxpayer dollars, that is taxpayers of every one of us in this room, needlessly. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Welly. Our next speaker is signed up, even though pardon me, Christina L. Nicholas Anderson.
Christina L. Nicholas Anderson for the record. Some recent public records have been denied. In doing some research, I learned of a service the state of Idaho offers called the Address Confidentiality Program. According to the Secretary of State, quote, if you move to a new location to escape domestic violence, sexual assault, stalking, malicious harassment, or human trafficking, the Address Confidentiality Program can help keep your new address confidential. They essentially reroute your mail for you from select places as well as deny public records requests on your behalf and quote, for your protection. The application for the program lists the following reasons for enrollment: domestic violence, sexual assault, stalking, human trafficking, malicious harassment, and that for a household where a member of the participant. The first line under the certification says you're a survivor of one of the above and you fear for your safety and the safety of your children. The second line reads, I believe disclosure of my actual address would endanger my safety or the safety of my household members. My concern is one of our commissioners has applied for this program and is using this program to hide behind as a way to deny public records requests. So how can a public official be hiding in plain sight? This seems like a wonderful program intended to protect those fleeing from abusive and scary situations and relationships, not for people to abuse and manipulate for personal gain. This causes me great concern and a lot of questions regarding the screening process, especially when our commissioners announce their districts at every single meeting. Finally, I want it on record that I've learned that a commissioner who's recently accused another commissioner of a threat did a public records request to find out the value of his property just days before she made the accusation. Why would someone check on someone's financials and their financial worth before making an accusation or claim against someone if not financially motivated? I'm confused, and I hope someone can help me understand these sequences of events because it looks a little sketchy to me, and I don't want to be thinking negatively about somebody's motives for something to put that kind of accusation out there. So thank you, and I welcome anybody who wants to respond to that. And if you don't, I'll accept your silence for what it is. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Ms. Anderson. Mr. Steve Wasilko.
First of all, thank you for that. I like those questions. I have a couple of questions for all the commissioners. One, do you guys all pay your taxes? You guys all current on paying your taxes?
Aye.
I don't understand what that has to do with this meeting.
Just a question. Your silence can be your answer, apparently.
I pay my taxes.
You do? Okay. Have any of you sued a former employer after being fired?
That'd be a no.
No.
I was terminated from Kootenai Health for reporting an abuse allegation without their permission.
So that'd be a yes.
That is it. I answered it exactly fully with the reason for termination.
Okay. Other than the protective order that we know about between Steve and Asia, have any of you ever had an order of protection filed against you?
No.
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 Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Wasilko. Ms. Darla Fletcher.
Good morning, Darla Fletcher for the record. I'd like to first make a statement and tell you that I did pray on the way in here because I am so grieved that I have to come and say some things today, Mr. Chairman. I have the same feeling I did when I got up to give the eulogy at my grandfather's funeral. That's exactly how grieved I am. But the time has come that we flip some cards up on the table. And since we do have a commissioner who's been a champion for transparency, I'd like to start by reading you something she posted on her Facebook on August the 14th. Transparency is for those who carry out public duties and exercise public power. Privacy is for everyone else. So to that end, I have some things to say. And then I want to enter them into the public record. Our transparency champion has 3 outstanding tax liens issued by the lien department for the Idaho State Tax Commission. First lien was filed by the Tax Commission on 12/23/2022 in the amount of $4,218.27. The second lien was filed on May 5th, 2023 in the amount of $1,007.81. The third tax lien was filed on August the 15th, 2023 in the amount of $710.45. And I have to tell you that my first reaction to this is I think we pay each one of you just shy of $100,000 a year. And I feel like if you are able to manage a budget of that amount of money, you should pay your taxes. And we just heard everybody say they paid their taxes. I did get this through public records. Anybody can get it from the State Tax Commission. We asked that collectively you manage what, $81 million budget a year. I paid into that, and probably everybody in this room paid into that. And a lot of people paid in that didn't make near that amount of money per year. And so it grieves me that we have somebody sitting up there telling us they're paying their taxes and the State Tax Commission's telling us something else. Next thing I obtained through public records request is our champion of transparency had a petition order for protection for harassment filed against them in the state of Washington for Thurston County on December 31st, 2008. And I'll enter both of these into the record. And I am really sorry that we have to discover these things. I'm sorry that it's come to this, because in the 10 years I've been in Bonner County, I have never witnessed this amount of acrimony and animosity between citizens that's happened since this particular board was assembled. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your comments, Ms. Fletcher. Ms. Patty Ahmet.
Patty Ahmet, for the record. I haven't actually submitted any records requests, but I have been doing a little bit of research about different duties for different people on the county level. One of the things that continually concerns me on a county level is why, if we look at the sheriff's job description, according to the state of Idaho, there's a list of duties that the sheriff is supposed to comply with, and that is he's supposed to meet in his job description. And these things that he has been asking for this last year are outside of his job description. One of them, he'd like to do more with the fairgrounds. He pretty much would like to control the fairgrounds. He has illegally spied on executive sessions through a deputy that is supposed to be on a detail to protect Asia Williams. We have a sheriff with his son-in-law who has been working with the Bonner County Fair Board. That seems to be inconsistent with what Idaho would require for nepotism. We have a sheriff who organized a secret organization out of the public eye with a group of elected officials. And with that group of elected officials, we have one of the board members who had privileged information and had a Bonner County email before they were elected as a public official. I don't think I could get a Bonner County email before I'm elected as a public official. We have, I would like to know if all 3 commissioners are afforded the same legal counsel as one of our commissioners who has a paralegal assigned to them. So
Excuse me. What'd you just say?
I would like to know if all three of our commissioners have equal access to legal as one of our commissioners who has been assigned a paralegal or who has a paralegal.
And who is that paralegal?
Mr. Bauer.
Who is he assigned to? Making statements that aren't true doesn't make it true. So if you're trying to allege, which I'm gonna actually. go
I'm
through-
addressing
I'm gonna
the
go through
board.
the whole list of what has been said here. Saying things that are not true doesn't make it true. So show me where you're saying that the prosecutor's office assigned Scott Bauer.
Is there a
to-
prosecutor's office? Is there a member of the
Ms. Ahmed,
prosecutor's office?
if I could,
If you're gonna stand there and lie, show the evidence.
Is there a member of the prosecutor's office here
Well,
now?
where did you
Um,
get your evidence? You don't need
what
one
old-
because you made the
M-
statement.
Miss
So
Ahmed
say where you got the
and
information from.
Commissioner Williams.
Where did you get your information from? Where
Yeah.
did you get your information from, Patty?
Is there a member of the prosecutor's?
Ms. Ahmed,
So
Yes.
it's a
And
lie.
Commissioner
So hold off
Williams.
on it until you have proof. Because a lot of you have just said things that are halfway through, but you stand up there making an allegation, you should be able to say it in real time or don't say it at all.
I reclaim my time. Thank you.
I reclaim that you should take
Miss
the advice
Miss Williams,
and not make statements that are not true.
Miss Williams.
It is Commissioner Williams, Commissioner Ahmed. You need to be honest with it, and there is no relationship, and it's the
It's-
same thing that Clerk Rosedale asked me. The attorney that I use is the same that the board uses, Bill Wilson. There is nobody assigned to Asia Williams. So where did you get your lie from, or do you just make it up? You made it up.
Thank you. I'd like to reclaim my time.
Ms. Ahmed, you may continue. We have
Okay.
been directed by legal counsel that the public comment section is a First Amendment right. And this individual intends to honor it, but for all of those that are here, that is your First Amendment right, but ordinance also says we are not to engage with you. Please proceed, Ms. Ahmed.
I'm gonna be clear, because this is getting a little frustrating. What you're doing is you're saying people that will come up here and be negative to Asia, you'll respond to and you'll interact with. And I'm being patient with it because I'm gonna go through everything that has been said. And so the inconsistency of how this meeting is run is unreasonable, because quite frankly, the moment she starts personally attacking somebody, I don't care that she's your mom. You're supposed to say, that's not what this meeting is for. But I'm gonna sit through it because we're gonna let everybody air out all this crap that they want to say about Asia Williams, which has nothing to do with my job, but I will answer it. So since you don't choose to rein in exactly what you read before, where it's, we're gonna call a sergeant at arms, or we're gonna kick you out of the meeting, it should say, unless you're going to say something negative about Asia, because that's what you're doing right now. So go ahead and continue.
Oh.
I can answer it.
Oh. Ladies and gentlemen, Miss Welly was allowed to have time. Miss Ahmed will be allowed to have time. Mr. Moore will be allowed to have time. Mr. Hutchins is going to be allowed to have time. I am going to honor the First Amendment rights as Sheriff Darrell Wheeler proudly proclaimed from that microphone previously. And I also intend to honor the Fourth Amendment today. Miss Ahmed, please proceed in this meeting.
Okay, I have a few more questions about the sheriff's duties and what his work entails. I would like to know why we have a duplication of services for the IT department. That is a question I've wanted to know. I've always wanted to know. I remember back in a meeting, back in the fall, back in the early part of the year, the sheriff got up and asked if he and Mr. Bauer could control the federal funds coming in and out of the community. And I think Commissioner Bradshaw responded to that. And there was a vote regarding the funding that came in and out of the community. And the sheriff did not get the vote he wanted. And when he didn't get the vote he wanted, he stood up and he said, I'm going to ask the feds to come in. And does anybody else remember that? Thank you. So I'd like to know if we're following our job descriptions or if we are working outside of our job descriptions, trying to attain power that doesn't belong to us in the community. And I'd like to know information. Somebody mentioned an IOCC or this group. What is this group? And who are the elite people that were on this group in Bonner County? Is there any information that can be given out to the public regarding a private information, a private group that was gathering together to determine public what we should do, I mean, how things should react in Bonner County. Is there any information regarding that? That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Ahmed. Ms. Susan Bowman.
Good morning, Susan Bowman for the record. In June of 2022, the Zoning Commission approved a 20-unit affordable housing RV park in the Blanchard area and failed to follow the zoning code laws in doing so. This quadrupled the allowed density. The people living next to and surrounding this affordable housing RV park appealed that decision to the previous Board of Commissioners. Under appeal, the previous board upheld the Zoning Commission's illegal decision. That board decision was appealed to the district court by we the people based on facts in the law that the board chose to ignore. The judge agreed with the people and vacated that decision, remanding it back to the board. Judges cannot decide a case, but can only remand planning decisions in an effort to get commissioners to follow their own planning laws. The board then changed to the one we have now. The remand hearing was scheduled. Commissioner Ahmet knew about this scheduled hearing 6 weeks in advance. He then scheduled himself to go to Boise for a cybersecurity conference, knowing that he would be in Boise for the remand hearing. Although Commissioner Ahmet had attended 3 other meetings and hearings over Zoom that week, he got on Zoom to tell everyone at the remand hearing that he could not attend it because he was in Boise. Commissioner Bradshaw then made the decision to reschedule the hearing, giving only 2 days notice and calling it a continuance of the hearing. Many people who had driven an hour each way to the hearing could not attend the so-called continuance with just 2 days notice. Did Ahmet apologize? No, he did not. At the remand hearing, Commissioners Bradshaw and Ahmet again approved the affordable housing RV park using nearly the exact same reasons that were rejected by the judge. With only 3 minutes, I cannot possibly go into the applicable code sections here, but if anyone wants them, I will gladly provide them. The commissioners denied that the application is for housing. Commissioner Ahmet stated at the remand hearing that he didn't see how anyone could say that the application was for an RV housing park. That is coincidentally the same exact thing that Dan McDonald said. The application states 5 times that it is for an affordable housing or year-round RV living park. The Zoning Commission agreed that the RV park would provide housing, as did the planning staff. It is even written in the planning staff report. So now the people who will be greatly affected by 20 RV houses next to them have to again take the board back to the court, which will only be revisiting the exact same decision that the judge remanded to them. Zoning laws are put into effect to protect your property rights, folks. I suggest that you get involved before the next affordable housing RV park is located next to you.
Thank you, Ms. Bowman. Ms. Jody McPhee.
Hi, good morning. In the interest of transparency, yes, I have some questions, but I need to preface them with this first. Jody McPhee for the record. I'm a domestic violence survivor. This is what it looks like. By the grace of God and some amazing friends he placed into my life, I'm standing here today just 4 months out of a 25-year-long abusive marriage. Use your imagination. I think we've all noticed the presence of a sheriff's deputy both in public meetings and, according to the B, in executive meetings. So here are my questions. 1, is he babysitting one or more of you? Or is he bodyguarding one or more of you? 2, who assigned the deputy to shadow one or more of the commissioners? Was it the court or the sheriff?
It wasn't the court.
Any idea? Who is paying the deputy's wages? A commissioner or we, the taxpayers?
We the taxpayers.
Oh. And if it's the taxpayers, there is one then one, excuse me, and if it's the taxpayers, then is one or more of the commissioners receiving special treatment that women and men like myself would never receive? Would I get a taxpayer funded sheriff bodyguarding me?
Thank you for those very tough comments, Ms. McPhee.
It's a little disheartening that people sit in this
Oh.
room and allow, as the chair, people to assault someone who achieved the standard necessary for the restraining order. And I've sat through it over and over in this meeting. And so for people to continue to bring it up, it's absolutely mind-boggling. It is the first time in the history of the country. It isn't normal, which means that the evidence presented was substantial enough to achieve it. And the fact that people sit here and say, but why? That deputy is back there because Commissioner Bradshaw declined the option offered from the county. And so that's why he's here. I don't know whether you would get it or not. I'm not here to pass judgment on what your situation is, but I find it sickening that members of the community think it's appropriate to continue to talk about a restraining order in a way as if my status doesn't count. And it wasn't an Asia versus Bradshaw comment. Did she say it? Is it true? It was a third party who reported what happened. So there is no discrepancy here, but the board has stuck its face into this civil matter inappropriately. The deputy being back there is because of what Commissioner Bradshaw chose. Why are you guys not saying, why did you threaten to shoot Commissioner Williams? Why is that not something any of you who've stood up here to talk about this restraining order have ever said in this meeting? We are here because he did it. So stop pushing your stuff my direction. Hold the person who caused it. Hold the person who caused it responsible for why that person is in the back.
Maybe that's what they're doing.
So let's get back to the meeting, and the first, Miss Welly, while you were in the process of laughing at a domestic abuse victim, I have allowed Commissioner speak for yourself, but
I did not laugh.
Commissioner Williams is
allowing what is happening
Point of order.
here is the chair is
Thank you.
allowing people to harass an elected official over a restraining order. That's what's happening. And it's unreasonable and inappropriate. And it's reasonable actually that you err on the side of this is not the time and place for that type of a communication.
I'm going to follow the guidance of the good Sheriff Wheeler, and I'm going to err on the side of the First Amendment today. I'm hopefully also going to err on the side of the Fourth Amendment throughout the rest of the day. And I'm going to take my instructions from statute, the Constitution, the Constitution, the Constitution, and the rule of law. We have been counseled by our prosecuting attorney that the First Amendment is more or less inviolate. And I believe that in reference to these freedoms, whether we like it or not, and I believe I was counseled by one of the speakers who I'm about to let speak, Mr. Spencer Hutchings, who we're going to give him his opportunity to speak. Mr. Moore, you're going to get your chance. I have said I would give you your chance, and you have my word, you will get it. Sometimes we have to listen to things we don't hear. I believe I've heard that before, and I might hear some things I don't want to hear again. I believe that transparency is a two-way street, and I chose this job. With that being said, we're going to get back to the public comment.
If this was flipped, you would have called for a recess a long time ago. That's what would have happened. But
Thank you for speaking for me, Commissioner Williams. Mr. Hutchings, go ahead.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes,
Yes,
Mr.
sir.
Hutchings.
Okay. I would first like to say that I don't know where Hollywood's getting their actors these days, but they should look in Bonner County because there's some pretty good ones up here that can do it with a straight face, which I think is kind of entertaining. For the people that don't know some of the folks that are talking, I feel sorry for you. But for the people that do know, well, some of the folks that are talking, I'm sure you're just rolling on the floor laughing with some of the stuff that's been said. Okay, I got that out of my system. I'm glad that you're doing the First Amendment thing, Luke, because I really wanted to say that. And for those of you that don't understand why there's a sheriff in the room, it's because when there's a restraining order against somebody, there's a distance requirement. And since Steve refuses to adhere to that and come to the meetings instead of doing them on Zoom, the sheriff is obligated to protect Miss Williams. Hopefully you guys can comprehend that. Okay. And the next thing is, since nobody else has asked it, I'll ask it. Steve, why did you threaten to shoot Miss Williams?
I didn't, and nobody ever heard me say that. Miss Williams never heard me say that. Mr. Jocelyn perjured himself on the stand. So there you go. There you have it, Spencer. I can say I had dinner with President Trump last night. I can even write that down, but that doesn't make it so, does it?
So what you're saying is the judge is incorrect and needs to go back to school or something, needs to go back and learn how to do his job because he's wrong in his assessment of what was said.
I said nothing of the such.
And the voicemail recording that was released that you left on Lewis Marshall's phone, that's not you talking, that's somebody else?
That is absolutely me, and his behavior since then has verified what I said was absolutely 100% correct.
Okay, well, all right. Well, everybody knows where you stand, Steve. And now I'd like to understand or try to get an understanding of why we have what I can tell is only 2 people left in the county government who actually care about the citizens. And that would be Sheriff Wheeler and Commissioner Williams. And I would like to know why there's so many people that are in the Dan camp, as they're affectionately known, Dan bots, since they just do whatever Dan says. I would like to know why so many of these people are attacking the only 2 people in county government, Sheriff Williams, or Sheriff,
Well said.
sorry, Commissioner Williams and Sheriff Wheeler, sorry, misspoke there, Sheriff Wheeler and Commissioner Williams. I would like to know why the Dan bots are so adamant in attacking these guys. I mean, what is it about transparency and about trying to stick with the rule of law is so abhorrent to you folks? I don't get it. I'll leave it there.
Thank you, Mr. Hutchings. Would you put your hand down? Thank you. Mr. Martin, go ahead.
Sorry,
Way
old man.
out there. Go
Old
ahead,
man
Mr.
trying
Martin,
to find
please
the
announce your
button.
name. I know who you are.
My name is Wayne Martin for the record. I really had not planned on speaking, but not all of your policies, Mr. Chairman, are being followed. There was a gentleman that spoke up, first name of Steve, that he was allowed to speak but did not state his name. There appears to be inconsistent application of or following of the rules. I do appreciate that you do allow the replacement of time when somebody is interrupted. But in some cases, some people have been allowed over a minute of additional time, which is something that I've asked in the past to consider looking at 5 minutes, even 4 minutes over 3. A remark made by Patty as to the Fair Board. The commissioners select the Fair Board. The Fair Board is not elected by the citizens. They're not appointed by anybody else other than the Fair Board, or sorry, the county commissioners. The Blanchard RV Park, I am still in a quandary as to allowing a minimum of 250 gallons of water per minute instead of requiring a larger amount for safeguarding not only the residents that would be in that RV park, but should it happen at a time when there are fires going on around the local areas and resources end up getting depleted from different departments to assist in mutual aid, that resource time for responding is going to increase greatly, along with the fact that you have those 20 plus additional people in the area trying to evacuate on very small dirt county roads. Again, Luke, you mentioned 3 constitutions. I know the federal, the state, not sure where the third one is, because you did say Constitution, Constitution, Constitution. I do wonder, because it has been mentioned in the beginning about attacks, remarks against somebody is not going to be accepted. But yet, not only today, but in previous meetings, they have taken place. And I know Mr. Bradshaw and you have stopped people in the past. My 3 minutes are up. Thank you. You have a good day.
Thank you, Mr. Martin. Miss Christine Noella. Christine, are you available? Miss Jennifer Kramer.
Good morning. It's Rick Kramer for the record.
Oh, go ahead, Mr. Kramer.
I would like to address Asia Williams. Asia, I just want to thank you for having the courage to stand up to these two bulls. You are.
Are you asleep?
No.
Oh.
Can you hear
whoever
me?
is out there that is not Mr. Rick Kramer, could you please mute yourself so that everybody can hear and one at a time? Go ahead, Mr. Kramer.
This is Christine Noella, and I wasn't able to unmute my phone properly. So after Mr. Kramer, I'd like to speak. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. You'll have your opportunity. I'll give you an opportunity.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, go ahead, Mr. Kramer.
Okay, once again, I'd like to address Asia Williams and thank her. Thank you, Asia, for having the courage to stand up to these bullies day after day after day. And as I said to you before, God said you were born for a time such as this. And I encourage you to stand strong and understand that the majority of Bonner County is behind you. We are what Steve Bradshaw called bacteria. And the bacteria has a way of growing, and we are growing in numbers to stand against these two. And we just want you to know that you're not in this fight alone. So please stand strong and know that we're behind you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kramer. Would you put your hand? All right, Miss Noella, excuse me.
Hi, it's actually Christine Logue for the record. And I would just like to make comments that it does seem a little bit strange that each attack that comes out seems to be directed. Maybe it's not, but it seems to be that way. I appreciate all the hard work that you do, Asia, in the communities, not only our community, other communities. What a beautiful example of what a true commissioner does. You care for our people, you care for our county, and I hope that you can keep your head up. As far as asking for public record, if there shouldn't be any specific reason to have an exact address for somebody, especially under that situation. I'm sure it's just the address that's not being wanting to be out there. But after you've seen some of the threats, you go through some of these threads where people are just vulgar. It's inappropriate. It's inappropriate. And I certainly wouldn't want my address out there either, especially being a public servant, so to speak. An address is nothing. It's insignificant. One other thing that I would like to say is there is a special meeting today at 2:30 p.m. And I would like everybody to know that it is not under Zoom, that you must attend in person. I thank you for your time.
Thank you, Miss Noella. Miss Plant.
Hi, John and Plant for the record. I'm just really trying to figure out who's being honest. Do we not care about the 10 Commandments and including bearing false witness? Some of these things could be considered slander. I'm shocked also at Mr. Bradshaw constantly saying the judge is inaccurate, confused, or wrong. This isn't the first time he's called a judge being confused. Just 2 weeks ago at the RV hearing, he called it that the judge was confused. This feels like a witch hunt. And when you go back to history, the sad part is when someone's on a witch hunt, whether you float, you're considered a witch and you burn on the stake. If you don't float, you drown. And either way, someone dies. And it has to do with a group of people that are on a witch hunt. And I would sure hope that they would really consider what they're doing. Asia, I've been supportive of you, and I'm really sorry that all this is happening because I feel like you do a really hard work job for the community. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Plant. Ms. Glasso.
Ladies' hand has been up for.
Thank you. I want to take this opportunity, first of all, to address the Freedom of Information Act. There was a request by me placed. It was specific to Commissioner Bradshaw. I received a snippet of information, not the entire request. I placed 4 reminders, completely ignored. I am in that situation again today where I cannot get response, not even the request for the additional 10 days. So something needs to be done. And I have provided that to you in writing, but I want the public to know it as well. And one more item that needs to be brought up is that Commissioner Williams, you're after her emails. Well, Commissioner Amat, we can't do that for you if you want to take everybody to coffee and talk to people off record. Keep it on record, keep it written, let the public be able to request your communications. It's really important. If you try to take everything off record and go to coffee, well, then the public doesn't know what's being said. So please keep everything on board, and what's good for the goose is good for the gander, sir.
I'm going to take a moment to respond to that one. Full disclosure, I did offer to drink a cup of coffee with a number of people. I think I've offered to drink a cup of coffee with someone in the audience, and I believe they said they'd rather choke than drink a cup of coffee with me, but I did offer. And I did offer to drink a cup of coffee with Miss Suzanne Glasso so that I could listen to what she had to say. And then in her preceding response, she accused me of trying to go on a date with her.
No, I did not.
Yes,
No,
I drink coffee with many people.
She said, what she said
That's
was,
exactly
she wanted
what
to fight
she
you,
said.
well, we're not dating. She didn't
And-
accuse you.
I think since
Thank
we have
you. And I drink coffee with many people.
Coffee with
And I only date one of them, and I've been married to her happily. I hope it's
That's not
mutual,
what
but
you
thank you.
stated.
All right, thank you. Thank you,
Miss-
Lasso.
No,
again.
I'm gonna stop here because it's not right to mischaracterize what Ms. Lasso wrote. What she said was she requested the email be responded to. And she said, I don't want to go to coffee. We're not dating. Let's keep it on the record. She didn't accuse you of wanting to date her. That's not her communication. She sent the email to all 3 commissioners at the same time. So there's no discrepancy. That's not what happened.
There were additional emails, but thank you for your comments, Commissioner Williams. All right,
Thank you.
Mr. Leedy.
Hi, for the record, my name is Jim Leedy. I kind of want to address the whole thing with Bonner County and a lot of shady stuff going on, because Bonner County has been going on with a lot of crazy underhanded stuff for years. It's nothing new. We can go back to Sheriff Wheeler with the Scheinmeister case and all the stuff he did with that Louis Marshall never prosecuted for some reason. It'd be nice to find out what his take was on that. But I don't think Louis Marshall's ever going to really tell us. But there is a lot of shady stuff going on with a lot of different officials, and stuff is starting to catch up to them. It'd be good for these people to start becoming honest, because eventually it's all going to come out. I've been doing public records requests up there for 6 years after Craig Johnson, my friend, was killed by Sheriff Wheeler's deputies. It's been difficult. It's always been difficult to get records out of Louis Marshall. He always finds a way to make sure you don't get them. You have to fight for records up there. That's not right. That's not the spirit of the Freedom of Information Act. When you look at stuff that Sheriff Marshall might as well be, because they're kind of the two of the same, aren't they? Louis Marshall and Darrell Wheeler, the way they've been behaving, it's just not honest. And a lot of people think that they're both upstanding people. Let's look at some of the stuff that they've done. Louis Marshall had promised to charge any deputies that he found that had violated the law with a crime. In Craig Johnson's case, we found that deputies tampered with evidence. Deputies lied to state investigators. And Louis Marshall never charged anyone, just like he didn't charge Sheriff Wheeler in the Scheinmeister case. It's time that people start realizing what's going on in Bonner County. And for those of you that are keeping secrets, they're going to be found out and you're going to be culpable. So it's time to start being honest with everyone. Thank you.
Would you like your turn now, Mr. Moore?
Yeah.
Oh, I was going with the hands online. You're still, there's other people. Oh, Mr. Moore, Mr. Lee. Thank you, Mr. Lee. Your hands. Mr. Moore, come to the microphone. I'm ready for you. We're ready. Yes, sir.
Kevin Moore for the record. So yeah, this is going to be pretty disjointed because luckily I came after a bunch of people here. So I'm all over the map trying to spontaneously respond now. But one of them I'll try to start out with about numerous people talking about scripture or whatever. And we had Mr. Hammer here, whatever, started us out with the invocation. So I'm going to remind us, whatever, there's a scripture about praying unceasingly. And so that means we can, as Christians, we can walk and talk and chew gum. We can do business, but we can still have a mindset of Christ or whatever to pray for our enemies. Today was the first time I heard from this pulpit the word bacteria. Well, lately in the U.S. Dialogue, whatever, we've heard the term vermin. And before that, we've heard the term deplorables. So hopefully, we are brothers and sisters, and we come here to try to do something for the well-being of all people, whatever, not Democrats or Republicans. The United States was formed on a separation of church and state. There's a pluralistic program that we're to be about. And so as I've heard about the RV park and as Mr. I think Leedy left me off here or whatever about the Shine Master case or whatever, that's a new one to me that I got to come up to speed on. But I want to back up, or I want to go on top of what he was trying to say, or what I took from what he said. There's numerous things before you commissioners came on board that the citizens should care about as per inconsistencies that have cost us citizens much money, to where now a week ago, whatever, well, we don't have enough money to cover ourselves insurance wise because there's not enough money. We're going to have to do a 2/3 thing here. And so because of some inconsistency in the past that we're still paying for, we can't do normal business. And so before I forget it, as the one sister was saying something about 2 o'clock today, a meeting or whatever, I want to remind my brothers and sisters that today at 2 o'clock here in town, there's a Mr. Hurwitz, who is Idaho U.S. Attorney General. And supposedly, I guess he's going to be here. I don't know if it's his entourage or if he will personally be here, but it's called United Against Hate. And so hopefully other people will take up on that. What we see going on in the world now with Ukraine and Russia and Israel and Gaza, hopefully all of us are trying to double down on our spirituality, to know our Bibles well, so that we can better not only understand what's happening now and what is going to be happening in front of us, but to come back to Bonner County now, to get to some of my own personal scenarios. One of them, what somebody brought up earlier, whatever, one of the things that I don't like, and I don't have anything personally against Mr. Wheeler, I try to give everybody the benefit of the doubt, but I do have a problem when one entity wants to call themselves, and I may be using the wrong term here, so give me latitude, a constitutional sheriff. And so it's like, I have a real problem with that, because when one entity, whether it's a commissioner or commissioners, take too much of a kingdom stance, whatever, then it makes me way back off, because it's kind of like the problem of us getting past the separation of church and state, which we have been steadily seen. Interestingly, I voted for Trump the first time, but as soon as he got into office the first time, he let me know with the news reports, whatever, that the Johnson Amendment was null and void. And so that was my red line in the sand of debilitating our Constitution, of eliminating the church and state, because I want all my brothers and sisters to know their Bibles well. But when we get to where we as Christians are willing to coerce others to our way of thinking, then we got a real problem. And that's what's going on in Idaho legislature, big time. And so there's a scripture, John 16:2, and I'm going to badly paraphrase it, but it says, they will be pulling you out of synagogues thinking that they're doing the will of killing you, thinking they're doing the will of God. And so we're in tenuous times, and people hopefully are doubling down, wanting to be part of their peer group to voice their opinions, but knowing that we do live in a pluralistic, and hopefully this takes me to Jesus when he was with the woman at the well. She says, well, we worship over here on this Mount Gerizim. And he says, you worship what you do not know. Salvation is of the Jews. And it's coming a time to where everyone will not worship at any place, whether it's a holy land right now, that the temple of God is within you, and you will worship God in sincerity and truth.
Good word.
Thank you, Mr. Moore. Mr. Bowman, you're standing. Would you like to make some comments?
Dave Bowman for the record. This is regarding this special meeting this afternoon at 2:30. So I'd like to let everybody know that it would be a good one to attend. It is supposedly to cure things that were done against the open meeting law last week. I'd like to point out that you all passed a resolution to make a new bylaw that said you can't revisit anything within 90 days after it's been voted on or brought up. I don't remember the exact terminology, but this is 7 days out. The notice, I don't know when this notice was posted upstairs, but it says duly noticed at 9 a.m. It was posted online at 2:35 p.m. yesterday. That would be 23 hours and 55 minutes before the scheduled meeting, not quite the 24 hours. And I brought up at an earlier meeting a few months ago how you like to schedule these things at 24 hours and 1 minute before. And the response was, well, that's the law. 24 hours plus 1 minute is 24 hours. Well, 23 hours and 55 minutes isn't 24 hours. And that's archived on the web, that it was not posted up at 2:30. So, and this says posted at 9 a.m. Yeah, that's all I have. So I encourage people to attend.
Thank you, Mr. Bowman. Is there anybody else in the audience who would like to speak? Oh yes, Mr. Heller, pardon me, you didn't.
Hi, my name's Susan Drumheller. I live in Sagal, Idaho, and I'm here to talk on a different topic. I'm on the board of Project 7B, and we advocate for responsible land use planning and public involvement in land use decisions. And I want to thank you for reading our objection letter into the record last week that addresses the problem of approving minor land divisions on the consent agenda of your regular business meetings. But I was disappointed to hear you dismiss the court's ruling, which has determined that your process is in violation of the state statute that requires due process for appellants. As long as you continue to approve minor land divisions on the consent agenda without any deliberation, you're essentially out of step with the latest case law on minor land divisions. I was also surprised to hear Commissioner Bradshaw call the judge confused. We heard that earlier.
I never called him confused. Thank you very much.
The state courts, after all, have the authority and the knowledge to interpret the law and not the commissioners. In deference to their authority, it's your responsibility to abide by that ruling. I understand that this recent decision has been challenged by the developer on the behalf of the county. Whatever the resolution is in court, we ask that you return to a more open and fair process to consider minor land divisions. Since the code was changed in 2016 to create the streamlined minor land division process, more than 665 applications have been filed. Of all land divisions in the county, the vast majority since that time were created under this new administrative process. We estimate that between 1,310 and 2,620 parcels have been created by minor land divisions. We can't know the exact number without opening up every single application, however. But we figure the average is 3 or more parcels per application. So it's likely on the higher end. Meanwhile, only 455 parcels were approved under the more rigorous subdivision process, which requires public hearings and comment periods, and only 207 parcels were approved as short plats. Overall, subdivisions and short plats make up only a quarter of all land divisions in the county in the last 6 years. In summary, the vast majority of new parcels have been created through an administrative process with almost no public notice or involvement and no real opportunity for appeal. We urge you to pause on your current process and really rethink if minor land divisions are in the public's interest. And we urge you to make policy decisions based on the public interest and not the private interest as you represent us, the public. Thank you. Thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Drumheller. Is there anyone else who would like to speak? Oh, Michelle Kins. Or Messer, excuse me.
Yes, thank you. Cheryl Messer for the record. I just wanted to make sure the special meeting today, it said it was on Thursday, November 14th at 2:30. So it is today, right? Tuesday, November 14th at 2:30. Okay, and it says it's going to be upstairs. From the amount of people, if a bunch of people show up, will you bring it downstairs?
We'll check it out at that time.
Will you bring it downstairs if there's a bunch
I
of
have
people?
given you your response.
So it's not a real response.
I don't have the ability to know how many people are going to be there.
Okay, if there's more than that room will hold, will you bring it downstairs?
I will take that into consideration. Thank you, Ms. Messer.
That's still not an answer. Okay, and this will not be on Zoom, is that correct?
I don't have that answer for you at this time. Would you like it to be on Zoom? I think we can try to arrange that.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Fletcher. Or Mr. Garrick, you're closer. Come on, Mr. Garrick. And then after Mr. Fletcher, I'm going to cut it off because we're at 1 hour and 6 minutes so far with a pretty lively, robust First Amendment discussion here at Bonner County today, but we do have back to the business of the county. Mr. Garrick.
Good morning, George Garrick for the record. I'm pleased that you are so interested in First Amendment rights. It seems like for the majority of the year, that wasn't a concern for you, Commissioner Oman. As a matter of fact, I think people need to be reminded that the Bonner County Republican Central Committee rebuked you and Commissioner Bradshaw not once, but twice. And I'm frankly surprised that with this now continuing chaos, the Bonner County Republican Central Committee doesn't have more members here in person to watch this fiasco. So I'm hoping that in the future, the committee will rebuke you both again. And I know that that doesn't mean anything to either one of you. I think you, Commissioner Bradshaw, you said that was a badge of honor. And I think Commissioner Oman, you wrote a letter published in the Bee saying that it didn't matter what the Bonner County Republican Committee said. So I don't know. I think that's kind of surprising, but I hope and I will insist that the Central Committee address this new fiasco that you're foisting on the county.
Thank you, Mr. Garrick. All right, Dr. Fletcher, you're the last speaker at this time. What a robust discussion.
Thomas Fletcher for the record. Mr. Chairman, thank you for allowing us to speak. As an observer of what has transpired over the last 10 months, I am struck with an odd psychological dynamic. At some ratio of at least 100-1, there has been consistent, vociferous, mean-spirited comments made towards Commissioner Bradshaw and Commissioner Oman. And more recently, poor Mike Rosedale, he's now coming, and he's really a very pleasant human being. Even he's coming under the ire.
Can I get you to address the board, please, Mr. Fletcher?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Doctor.
Remarkably, there's one personality in this room who seems to be above criticism. There was a famous Italian Renaissance political philosopher by the name of Machiavelli. He made the observation, when you can find the person within the political arena who is above criticism, you have found the person You have identified the person who rules over you. Bonner County, wake up.
Thank you for your comments, Doctor. At this time, our next agendized item is to adopt the order of agenda, and I would entertain a motion as such.
Yeah, make a motion to adopt the order of agenda as presented.
I second it to advance it for discussion.
There is a motion and a second. Is there discussion?
Yes, what is the executive session litigation, section 4? And I would also like to know if the request was put in at 9 a.m. for the special session, why it wasn't just tacked on to this subsection to allow for the community to participate, but also since this subsection requires the lawyers to be present, it would be being considerate of their time to not ask them to come back to the building twice. And so first question, what is it for? What is the issue to be addressed?
Miss Commissioner Williams, excuse me. I put that on last week, similar to the litigation that I also put on for the 7th. And I did ask last week for our attorneys to be present. And I also invited them by email, which I have the record of, to be present. I also invited them to be present, which I believe we're going to get into when, as both you and I recognize that the executive session of 11/7, there might be some concerns, which I emailed to the prosecutor and said, hey, I think we may have got this wrong. What do we need to do to fix it? And the reason why we had to have the meeting at 2:30 is that there are agendizing requirements. Now, I'm uncertain if a prosecuting attorney is going to show up, but I have learned that without that prosecuting attorney, it would be a bad idea to have it. So I'm not going to have it unless we have an attorney present. And looking in the room or online, we don't have an attorney present. And so a special meeting can be noticed with 24 hours notice. But in order to put it on the BOCC, there are additional reporting requirements. So when I came to work yesterday, having emailed Bill Wilson with my concerns, I immediately requested to have this meeting. So in the instant that we aired, we could cure our violations. It went to legal, and that is why there is a 2:30 meeting. And I believe that was with the approval of council. Is that correct, Madam Clerk?
Right. So that wasn't my question. What is the executive session that's attached to this agenda for? It says litigation. So what is it? What is?
There
the
isn't going
issue?
to be a litigation. It was on there in the instance because we have to post beforehand,
So
Commissioner.
are
Williams.
we removed? So
I'm not going to go into it. So that there, unless,
well, hear what I'm asking you. So the agenda has BOCC executive session for litigation. If you're not going to go into it, then we need to amend the agenda to remove that item.
absolutely. If you like, I would second that motion.
Okay. All right, I move to amend the agenda to remove executive session BOCC.
I will step down from the chair and second the motion. Is there any further discussion on the amendment to the agenda?
I don't have any further questions.
Roll call vote regarding the motion and second on the floor.
Commissioner Williams,
Yes.
Commissioner Ahmed,
Yes.
Commissioner Bradshaw.
Yes.
I would now entertain a motion to adopt the order of agenda as amended.
I move to adopt the order of agenda as amended.
Second that.
There is a motion, and a second. Is there any discussion amongst the board?
I have no questions.
Roll call vote.
Commissioner Williams,
Yes.
Commissioner Bradshaw,
Yes.
Commissioner Ahmed.
Yes. The order of agenda as amended has been passed. The motion carries. All right, District 1 Commissioner report.
Nothing today. But something really good forthcoming.
All right. Well, I look forward to whatever that may or may not be. Commissioner Williams, District 2 Commissioner report.
So I'm going to start by kind of going through the round robin of the room. With respect to the lady who, I think it was Mrs. Fletcher, brought up an issue of a order of protection. So in that particular issue, it actually shouldn't be listed as that. I married a person who was divorced. My name was attached to an order of protection during their custody battle, which he prevailed on. It was removed in real time, so I don't know why Thurston County has it listed as an order of protection because there was no order of protection against me. as respect to taxes. So paying taxes is what I have done. So if you ever file your IRS forms and you owe, you get a lien. It's automatic, actually. So that's having a lien doesn't mean I'm not paying my taxes. So I am paying my taxes. You can go on a payment plan with the state of Idaho for back taxes. As our stepson left the nest, we had a void of how many deductions we could take. And so having back taxes and paying them, my answer is actually valid. Then there was somebody, you asked the question about the address. And so your presentation is not accurate. So when a person gets a restraining order, the state contacts that individual to go into the address removal if it's reasonable and appropriate. And so two of the things that you identified was stalking and something else. I can't remember the other one. So the state actually takes the application and the restraining order and they review it and they make a determination whether or not it's reasonable and appropriate. And in the case that I have, they determined that it was reasonable and appropriate. Your statement is not accurate that it is a way to hide public information. What you won't get is my address. That's it. It won't be listed. So when someone says, where does Asia live? Or you hover over the GIS map, you're not going to see my address populated. It's not going to be released for public records. It's not going to be visible. My PO box is visible because it's not my physical address. So the address issue does not prevent you from receiving the records that you have requested from me.
That's not true.
Well, pardon me.
So
It's a
I am
district report.
I am not the person who releases records, but that is not what there's actually a program for that. And if you have a question about that, you can reach out to the Secretary of State. But I qualified for that program based on the evidence that was presented in the civil order. So I don't receive something and decide whether or not to release it. They're following a process in place for the nature of the threat that was made. And so it isn't a way to hide behind something. With respect to, I want to make sure I'm not missing one. You had a statement about being a person of domestic violence and not having a person in place. So when this took place, this was not something that he said, she said, which I was pretty clear about. The reason the deputy is here is based on the choice of Commissioner Bradshaw. Commissioner Bradshaw can remove this issue if he were to accept the county's request to be in a different building. So in order to weigh actually the interest of the public, Judge Julian's order required we had to adjust the 300 feet for this meeting. The deputy back there, I'm sorry, Lieutenant, back there is doing what is reasonable and appropriate for the situation. Not all situations are the same. And so the idea of, I can respect everybody's position on this issue, but I find it very troubling that the communication about this restraining order has only to do with Asia. I didn't create the problem. The problem was created in spite of the smirks by Commissioner Bradshaw. And it is not good in our county because let's say you may not like it, but there are people out there who are also in the same boat where they have restraining orders. The way the community is acting for politics over this restraining order doesn't help people that are in that situation. And so I met the statute, which I believe was set a little bit higher, in my opinion, of what to do in this particular case. The AG also has addressed this issue. There's also another thing I want to address was someone mentioned a comment about my early records request. So I haven't gone through Bonner County putting forth all the negative things that have happened from members of this board. But one of the things that has happened is Commissioner Bradshaw has continually sent something called complaints of public corruption to the AG's office at the beginning of my term. Those were reviewed and dismissed by the AG, but I was identified as the way in which to stop this from continuing was to go against Bradshaw with respect to libel for intentional or malicious behavior of submitting things. I did not choose to do that. I did look at a records request to see if it was even worth it. It's also something that's reasonable and appropriate when someone consistently reports. And I will tell you, it is frustrating because for the restraining order case, I have the same investigator as all of the false complaints from Commissioner Bradshaw. And so all of those findings where there is no evidence of public corruption, I wasn't turned into the sheriff. But that's why that public records request was made, was to see what could I do. If you actually look at what you guys have kind of brought forward is, my question is, what have I done wrong as a commissioner? You guys are bringing forward, Asia has a payment plan for her taxes. Somebody's ex-wife put her name on a restraining order and it was removed. Asia received a restraining order and she accepted the state's offer to hide the address. How about one of you guys comment on the work I'm doing in the community? Why don't you talk about the commissioner chats? Why don't you talk about the town halls? Why don't you talk about communities like Priest River that contact me over the benefit of having that dialogue and bridging the gap makes for the community? What has happened is with all of these records requests, you guys aren't finding your smoking gun. And so you're just coming at me unnecessarily. It's not good for our county. It's not good for community. It's not good to be dishonest. You guys are just making statements with no proof online. I see it. I don't respond to it. It isn't necessary. So I'm going to go into my District 2 report. Hopefully I addressed every negative comment. And at a minimum, you should sit back and say, oh, well, she actually had a reasonable answer for that stuff. Now let's focus on Bonner County, because all of this stuff is taking away the attention from Bonner County. Mr. Moore brought something forward that is very crucial. Our county did not buy the insurance level that it needed due to finance, yet this board wants to hire a third-party attorney to address a civil issue. I hope all of you come, because one question is, if they actually move forward with this plan, one, how is it not a public corruption for someone to vote to use taxpayer funds for a civil issue? And then do you not think that you'll be held liable as taxpayers to address the issue of the county bought him an attorney for something that's civil? And what is that impact to Commissioner Williams? Why is this board involved in something civil? It's not reasonable that this is even a discussion in the business meeting of Bonner County, because it is not the business of Bonner County. And this is the example of a county board putting itself in line for the litigation that costs our community. We should be doing the stay in your lane on this. If Commissioner Bradshaw doesn't like it, he can go back before the judge. If I don't like it, I go back before the judge. That's how it's supposed to work. We're using a civil order of protection for politics, and we look foolish continually bringing this up. I can promise you that the AG is watching this meeting. I can promise you that we don't look good. I'm asking you, bring up an issue that I'm doing as a commissioner that you don't like. Not one of you, I think, would reasonably say, we don't like that you're doing commissioner chats to bring information to the community, because that doesn't make logical sense. So my job as a commissioner is being fulfilled. And what you guys have shown through all of you who were given ample amount of time to speak negatively about me is not one of you said anything negative about my work as a commissioner. All of what you're doing is as if I'm running for re-election. We don't run against each other anyhow. Just hold it all until you're 3 and then go all the way. But right now, you're actually not saying I'm doing bad as a commissioner. Actually, you guys do read my newsletters. I know a lot of you have signed up for that. I'm telling you what's going on in the community. So I think that we should stop with the attacks and say, what are we doing? Because in some ways, we are self-imploding our county. And so with that, I'm going to shift to our District 2 Commissioner report. So election day, we had that. I am the Spirit Valley Precinct Committee woman for that area. Our district elected Miss Kathy Nash. So congratulations to her. She will sit with Margaret, who is the current chair, and then new trustee Elizabeth Glazer, who unseated trustee Reinbold. So congratulations to all of those persons. It is our hope in West Bonner County School District that we can come together, regardless of the differences that people may have, and start to rebuild our schools. As we know where we are with our ratings of our schools in West Bonner County, we are nowhere near where we should be or where we want to be. And we need to have a rebuild of what's happening there. So I encourage everybody to support. It doesn't matter whether you voted for people or not. Once they win, they're your people, and we need to support our schools in the right direction. I canceled commissioner chats to the end of the year. I need to address some health issues, and I need to not have to do too much of this at this time. I will restart those in January. I will keep notifying the community of who the guest speakers are. I'm wanting the first one in January to be Idaho Department of Water Resources, because we did DEQ last. Thank you to everybody that comes as a guest, everybody that comes as a member of the public. These actually are really helpful and allow us to understand how the community functions and to know where we can best put our resources. For community engagement, I am not going to select anybody for November and December just because of holiday time. I want to make sure the majority of people can participate. Since my last one was Priest River, I'll go farther up north this time because I'm trying to alternate the areas. With respect to the weekend review, I did put out a weekend review newsletter to explain what has happened. I encourage everybody to participate. What you have a meeting for is a lot of it's unprecedented. And then some of it is just the desire of board members to, through a vote of 2-1, remove a commissioner from their status as an elected. That's not a slap in the face to Asia Williams. It's a slap in the face to the people of Bonner County. And that's what we need to convey to people with differing opinions. It doesn't matter whether I voted for Commissioner Ahmed or Commissioner Bradshaw. They're my commissioners. And I expect no different in terms of those who voted for me and those who didn't vote for me. We need to stop the internal struggle within Bonner County because it's a misuse of our resources. We have a lot of things we should be working on that we're not paying attention to. All of this is just a smokescreen. Why don't we have enough money? Why are we paying for things based on interest from funds that are not renewable? What is our plan moving forward for the county to address the fact that we are not running at a very good budget level? What are we doing? We're pitting ourselves in front of additional litigation that we unnecessarily need to be involved in. That's what we're doing. These are not good decisions for Bonner County. We need to start holding people accountable. And as people, you guys need to address this constant 24-hour. We don't put that on Zoom. It's intentionally away from this period of time so that most people do not want to sit here for 3 hours just to hear that meeting. But it is necessary and it's appropriate because big decisions are being made in these 24-hour meetings. I will tell you that this board has been advised by council in a lot of ways with respect to the executive session meeting that took place. I'm going to read you the opinion. By plain language of the statute, the subsection, which is litigation, is only appropriate when discussing legal matters with counsel. It is undisputed that no attorney was present for the executive session in question. As such, it's my opinion that the executive session was illegal and any decision resulting therefore must be considered void. Based on my experience in this organization, including participation in numerous meetings and executive sessions, I believe the Board of Commissioners is well versed in this area of law and this statute in particular. As such, I have a good faith reason to believe that the decision to enter executive session without counsel present was a knowing violation of Idaho Code 742061 subsection F, and that some members of the board or all of them may be subject to civil penalties. That was the opinion. So if you recall last week's meeting, I asked same question. What is the executive session litigation for? It came with no answers. And so there were a lot of decisions made that were null and void and risk of civil penalties. This a single commissioner needs to stop. We're wasting our resources on this. I will end with upcoming events. Priest River Senior Center has their meals every Monday at noon. There is lunch provided free to 50 and over. Donations are always welcome. Bonner County EMS will be present to provide free blood pressure checks. They actually reached out to thank me for the last week's announcement because it helped to get that information to community members that otherwise did not know. Blanchard Community Center has our Christmas craft fair November 17th from noon to 4, and then from November 18th from 9 to 4 p.m. Clark Forks Christmas Craft Fair is November 25th. So I'm going to keep kind of going through events throughout the Tuesday meeting because it's important that we know what our community is doing and how we can support our individual communities so that we can build stronger communities, because then we have a stronger county as a whole if our communities are stronger. I will actually forego asking, does anyone have questions? Only because of I will ask if you have questions. I saw your face. All right. Anybody have any questions for District 2?
Questions or comments?
Whatever you want.
Monica Gunner for the record. Asia, again, and I'll say it, I'll shout it from the rooftops. We appreciate you You are the best commissioner Bonner County has had in many, many years. And these people that are cutting you down, they are the same people that are cutting our wonderful, beautiful fair board down. Our fair board that is on record. They're to put on a fair. They're to hire clowns. They're to hire events. It's a fun. It used to be fun to be on the fair board. Our fair board members are being destroyed. We're going to lose every single one of them because they're not having fun. They're being beaten up by the same people, the exact same people that are beating you up. It's not fair to them. They're working hard. They love this community. They love the fair. We need to let them do their job as it has been done. I was on the fair board for years and years and years. We never had the problems that they're having now. They need to be left alone to do their job. They don't need the commissioner sitting in on them, telling them what they can do, telling them how hurtful they're being. They need to do their job, just like you need to be left alone to do your job, which you are doing fantastic at.
Thank you for your comment. Diane.
Diane Welling for the record. Commissioner District 2. Did you notice when we came into this room that Commissioner Almond ordered the clerk to the other side of the table?
I did.
And told you to move down.
Yes.
Do you see the distinct segregation of 3 at one table, 1 at another?
Thank you. Kevin.
Yeah, Kevin Moore, the record. And so, yeah, I appreciate all your dialogue and try to keep us all appraised out there. And so a couple things came to my mind as you mentioned there. And one of the things that I had forgotten earlier, whatever, as Mr. Lady, I think it was, mentioned about the Shine Master, which I said I had no recognition of, but so I want to remind us, whatever, that the Verbetta Bridge scenario, whatever.
But Kevin, you got to ask me a question about.
So I'm hoping that my commissioners, and I'm hoping that you will stay on top. And so my question is, I'm asking you to pursue, as you were talking about last week or two ago, about a independent counsel, whatever, to come in and look at some of the fair board scenario. Also include looking into the Verbetta thing that we had to pay for.
And so we talked about audit of fair, not an attorney, but I sent you the list of, were these the issues and concern, and you did respond to that. And so I am going to continue to move forward so that we could make that a transparent.
No, I did
issue.
respond to that.
No, I said you did respond.
Oh, okay,
You
thank
did respond and said that I got most of it, and then you added some things I
Good.
missed.
Thank you.
Yes. Yep, I saw it. Kevin.
George Garrett for the record. In previous meetings, I've asked kind of rhetorically if there has been any county in Idaho or any county in the United States where a central committee has rebuked 2 of the 3 or however many sitting commissioners. And I've kind of made it my business to kind of research this. And so far I haven't found any. So you all have a rather distinct honor in that situation. So I guess my question is whether or not if this whole new issue or this campaign is significant. You would think that the Bonner County Republican Central Committee that's rebuked Commissioner Bradshaw and Commissioner Oma would take this up. And so I'm just wondering whether you think that it should be taken up by the Central Committee, and whether or not the B, which I consider to be almost an illegitimate news source, will actually write honest articles about this whole fiasco.
So we already did public comment, so your question, it should be a question about District 2 report out, okay?
Yes. Apparently, Christina Nicholas Anderson for the record again. Apparently, some people, particularly in this audience, confuse the word accountability with tearing people down. I do believe in accountability. So in reference to your comment about it would be foolish for us as taxpayers to pay for a private attorney to deal with civic issues for this board and the restraining order situation. I guess I compare that to a lieutenant sitting in the back of the room and taxpayers, I believe, are paying for him. So from a taxpayer's perspective, I guess I wonder, and I heard that the survivor of domestic violence speak. I understand that you deserve some protection, as do other people who have restraining orders and so forth. But as a taxpayer, if we're not going to pay for an attorney to litigate or do whatever needs to happen for the protection order, for everybody's safety, and even for Mr. Bradshaw's safety on the other side of that, then I feel like we shouldn't be paying the lieutenant. That would be a burden for you, just like if Ms. McPhee wanted protection after a 25-year abuse, and just like every other person who has a restraining order, it's up to them to provide their own protection or to work off site or do whatever has to happen. And it's unfortunate that our society operates that way, that we aren't more victim friendly. But it seems like a shame, and particularly if we have a lieutenant, it's one of the higher paid people at the sheriff's department. I do kind of begrudge that. And it seems like we as taxpayers are taking the burden for your complaint. And I'm sorry that I'm not sounding more sensitive or victim friendly.
Christina, I'll ask you a question.
Sure.
Why are you actually not asking Commissioner Bradshaw why he's requiring the in-person meeting that results in the lieutenant being back there? Because what's happening is you're saying that because I was threatened and a restraining order was warranted as reasonable and appropriate, that I also have to bear the issue resulting from that. Why are you literally could look at Commissioner Bradshaw and say, will you agree to no longer do in-person meetings? Because that removes the issue that you're bringing forward. You're saying that it's all Asia. It's not any of Asia. He was given options and he chose to spend your tax money like this. Make sure you're pointing it in the right direction. It isn't Asia who chose this. It is Commissioner Bradshaw who chose it. And actually it could be ended today if he agreed to it.
So I hear what you're saying, and I validate what you're saying, and that is something that Mr. Bradshaw should account to as well. I will compare it to when you have a domestic violence situation and a custody exchange. There's not an officer there. Those people have to meet, and a third party is there like a mediator. So in this situation, I would say you have a mediator between the two of you.
That is not what a restraining order has, a distance requirement
I
there.
understand that.
And
I
so
understand
if your issue is truly the taxpayer spending time for the lieutenant to be back there, the person that can fix that right now is Commissioner Bradshaw. It isn't Asia. I'm not going to reduce my safety because of that issue. If you don't like it, why not you're standing at the microphone, turn right to Bradshaw and say, will you agree to remove the need for the deputy by agreeing to not doing in-person meetings?
So before I do that, let me ask you this. Can you honestly say you fear for your life with Mr. Bradshaw?
Again, because I achieved it, I have to justify it.
No,
to you.
no. Before I ask
Would you say that to, so Mrs. McPhee Miss McPhee had an issue with hers?
I would
you
ask
would say to her,
anybody, I will
Whoa,
ask
whoa,
anybody
people,
in this
can we
room.
Please get back.
Anybody in this room who has a protection order, I would say, with this large group of people here, Mr. Oma in the middle, a recorder on the end, we know we're zooming live for an entire community to see. Do you feel your life is in danger without that deputy at the or lieutenant at the back of the room? Do you feel your life is in danger? That's a simple question.
Thank you for your compassion. And I feel that danger regardless of whether he's there or not.
Okay, so the answer is yes.
The answer is absolutely yes. Now turn to Commissioner Bradshaw and ask him to ease the wallet on taxpayer money.
So had you not just ordered me, I was prepared to do that.
I didn't. Look.
Okay, last question. Why are we continuing to blame, the fairgrounds was brought up. Why are we continuing to blame a
So
dead
you're to
girl?
ask a question to me, not about someone else's comment. So what's your question? to
Okay,
me?
why are we continuing to blame a dead girl for what supposedly happened at the fairgrounds when she was never arrested, charged, or tried? And why then is the new fair manager on leave with a grievance filed just in the same way Darcy did prior to her death? And who is looking into the problems at the board level? And then what are we doing to do it? And as a reminder, the fair board has 2 vacant seats, and you as a collective board are responsible to fill those as soon as you're made aware that they're empty.
Okay. Due to time, we'll go ahead and end public comment at this time, or questions to me. I'll answer any questions after the meeting.
I'm not going to be at the meeting afterwards.
Is that the conclusion of your report, Commissioner?
Yes.
Thank you. It's 10:40. We're gonna take a 5-minute recess.
I was denied answers. Be nice if it was put on record that Commissioner Williams denied my opportunity to ask questions after she said that nobody asked her questions about her.
Stood back and smiled.
Madam Clerk. All right, it is 10:46 and we are coming back from recess to get on with our regularly scheduled business meeting, and it is now time for our Commissioner 3 report. So I 100% agree with Commissioner Williams. Let's focus on Bonner County. I think that is the job of a county commissioner, and it's found in code. So I'm going to read a couple of emails into the record, which I'm happy to provide to members of the press or anybody else who would like to submit a public records request, because I think it demonstrates some of the challenges that we've found, or I've found, in the 10 months that I've been in office. And there's some particularly salient points in regards to some of these timelines. And I have about 3.5 million reasons why, as a taxpayer to Bonner County, why I am concerned. Idaho Code 31-802, supervision of county officers. To supervise the official conduct of all county officers and appointed boards or commissions of the county charged with assessing, collecting, safekeeping, management, or disbursement of the public monies and revenues. See that they faithfully perform their duties, direct prosecution for delinquencies, approve the official bonds of county officers, and when necessary, require them to make reports and to present their books and account for inspection. Now, this is a piece that I just read from Exhibit A that was submitted by the Bonner County Fair Board, alleging, and I read, in summary, the BOCC and clerk neglected their duties to the County Fair Board as outlined in Idaho Code, including failing to comply with the following Idaho codes: Idaho Code 31-802 for supervision, Idaho Code 31-809 for financial examination and internal audit, and Idaho Code 31-1701 for external audit services, which are all going to be referenced throughout this meeting. And I'm not an attorney. I don't play one on TV. I used to be a soldier, retired, and I was a government teacher, but I do read relatively well. So here is the rule 1.7 from the American Bar Association in regards to client-lawyer relationship. General principles. Loyalty and independent judgment are essential elements in the lawyer's relationship to a client. Concurrent conflicts of interest can arise from the lawyer's responsibilities to another client, a former client, or a third person, or from the lawyer's own interests. So we have an employee who is currently suing the Board of Commissioners for $3.5 million, which to me is a pretty solid amount of money. That seems like a lot of taxpayer dollars. The board has said that we believe that this qualifies as an adverse relationship. Adverse is when you are opposing someone in a court of law. And the board has suggested, actually, we talked with Prosecutor Marshall in executive session saying, we believe that because we are being sued for $3.5 million of taxpayer funds, that this individual is adverse to the interests of the Board of County Commissioners. He is suing the Board of Commissioners. And we said, two of us have said, because he is adverse, we do not give written consent, which is what is found according to the rules of professional conduct as a lawyer. Also, it's in Rule 1.7, conflicts of interest. Now, there's been a series of acrimonious events since I took office. But I'd like to start with in March 2nd. Asia, please call me to discuss and send me any information regarding matters you want Lewis Marshall to assist you on. I will function as a paralegal to Lewis, gathering information and generating preliminary draft documents for Lewis regarding any matters you want Lewis to work on for you. Lewis Marshall will provide you with legal recommendations and other legal work product. but I will first interface with you on these matters for efficiency's sake. At all times, I will endeavor to ensure that any substantive opinions, recommendations, or actions coming from the legal department are those of Lewis Marshall's and not my own. Nevertheless, I will provide substantial preliminary assistance to Lewis on these matters for efficiency's sake. It is my understanding that you have been fully advised of my litigation against Bonner County and give your informed consent to use me only in a paralegal capacity as an individual commissioner on matters that Lewis Marshall approves are appropriate, such as the EMS matter previously discussed. I will be acting in a paralegal capacity to Lewis on your matters as you function in the role of an individual county commissioner entitled to preliminary legal advice in your individual county commissioner capacity. Thank you, D. Scott Bauer. And then there's a response from Commissioner Asia Williams. Sounds good. Thank you. Now, the Board of County Commissioners was not aware of this until I started submitting legal requests. And yes, I have a concern. So 2 of 3 of us believe that a lawyer who is suing Bonner County for $3.5 million of taxpayer funds is adverse to the county. However, that same attorney has been assigned, according to the email, which I got through a public records request, as a paralegal.
You're actually wrong, and it's not appropriate to misrepresent something, so you should contact Lewis. He got a very, very clear, sounds good. And then what was the conversation that I had with Lewis Marshall about what we were going to do? So I don't have a personal paralegal. Questions of the board from me don't go to Scott Bauer. You're making an assumption. So when we have the attorney here to fact check, so we were trying to figure out, as you know, how do we utilize a person who is being paid tax money to ensure that we're getting something during this process? And so we thought of an idea. It didn't work. So there was never an opinion given. So don't misrepresent to try to make a statement true that I was assigned a paralegal. I was not.
I'm only reading the record, and
Well, you're
Commissioner Williams, I
misrepresenting, and so if you continue to misrepresent the truth, I'm going to actually correct you in real time, because you're not going to have a video that doesn't check the lie. So it is, you should fact check. What you're doing is causing more of the problem for Bonner County by saying, here's a snippet. This was the conversation. But what was the outcome? Asia tried to make sure that as we pay somebody a salary, that we get something for that money. That's what it was. And it didn't work out because the board chose only to use Bill Wilson, which is the only opinion. And so even when Clerk Rosedale asked me, are you represented by Bauer? The response was no. But guess what? There's a paper trail. So why don't you look at every email that went to Bill Wilson for opinions? It didn't go to Scott Bauer. We were trying to find a way to utilize somebody that was being paid. It doesn't matter that you don't want the person working here. They work here. They should do something for the county. It didn't work out. So don't give snippets of stuff to say something's wrong. I'm going to do it the whole entire time because you are energizing a group of people with lies. So ask Lewis Marshall. He'll be here.
I did ask Lewis Marshall, and he acknowledged that this was an accurate statement. May I have permission to continue with my
Don't play
report,
games
Commissioner?
with me.
Oh,
You tell a lie, I'm gonna check you. So go ahead.
Nope.
That's where we are. So keep lying. I'm gonna keep checking you.
Thank you, Commissioner.
You're welcome.
I will continue. In regards to the open meeting violation written by prosecuting attorney Bill Wilson, I find it quite interesting, but I want you to know that I absolutely embrace 100% the idea of a special investigator, and I will be contacting the Attorney General's office absolutely to request that special investigator. And here's part of the reasons why.
We'll tack that on.
That
Kevin.
one's
Regret it.
done, Kevin.
I'm going to go back to 7 months ago, oddly enough, April 14th, Friday, April 14th, 2023. Gentlemen, this is a request for legal counsel. The meeting that occurred on 8:30 a.m., April 14th, 2023, was the third meeting where the BOCC did not have legal counsel present. This was the second meeting where Sheriff Wheeler attended and Scott Bauer was in attendance and represented himself as the sheriff's attorney or the Bonner County Fair Board's attorney? Will the BOCC continue to operate without legal representation while being forced to address an attorney from the office and the prosecutor that is currently an adversarial party to Bonner County in legally noticed meetings? As a newly elected commissioner, it seems odd that the office of the prosecutor provides an attorney to the sheriff and county fair board when these offices are taking positions in opposition to the majority of the BOCC. Yet the BOCC is not receiving legal counsel from the office of the prosecutor. What is more troubling is that these adversarial occurrences are taking place during meetings of the BOCC. Please help me to understand this situation. That was in April. Here we are today. I am still not an attorney. I have not gone to law school in the preceding 7 months. And we don't have an attorney present. I asked for legal counsel and we didn't get it. What was interesting about that email is that I submitted it to Bill Wilson and Lewis Marshall. It was then shared to the entire board, who we have now learned that that was only 3 weeks, or I'd have to go back, but from March, that there was, Scott Bauer was the functioning paralegal for Commissioner Williams, according to the records.
We're just increasing the cost of somebody's case by defaming them in this meeting, just so you know, because you're misrepresenting, but you clearly are attacking an employee of Bonner County. So when that person achieves a settlement, this will be Exhibit A. That's what's happening here. And you've been advised to not do this. And we are represented, as he pointed out, Bill Wilson gave a response on something. So let's not defame the prosecutor's office. Bill Wilson writes opinions. And because of behaviors of some of the people on this board, he refuses to communicate on the phone or via text. You have to do it in writing. Therefore, there's a paper trail. So don't defame other employees. These are employees. As an elected, if you attack employees, what do you think you're going to get? Employment litigation. We can't afford good insurance. I'm pretty sure we can't afford to be sued again by people by doing things like this. What does this have to do with the business meeting of Bonner County? You're not, it's dangerous ground you're treading on. It should stop. You're going to go through emails and make allegations. This is not what this meeting is for. I implore you to stop. This is not helping litigation. We are making a record for someone's litigation right now in real time. I guarantee you, Scott's watching this saying, yep, cha-ching, cha-ching, cha-ching.
Thank you, Commissioner Williams. May I continue with my
You
report?
can continue to waste taxpayer money when we get sued.
Oh, thank you, Commissioner. All right. So here's another one in regards to records request, because that's going to be on the agenda again. This is from, I got to go backwards, but not sure how you would like me to proceed with this. Please review and let me know. Thanks. Veronica, Luke Emmett made the following 10/30/23 record request under the auspices of BOCC supervision of county officer statutes. If the attached records custodian resolution is correct, you are the custodian of BOCC records. Please clarify which custodian of records Ahmed intended his request for, e.g. BOCC, Wheeler Marshall, HR Alyssa Clark. It is unclear how Ahmed could be invoking Idaho Code 31-802 and Idaho Code 31-828 to seek records of its own member without full BOCC approval. Since Ahmed cited these supervision statutes, it is unclear whether this is a full BOCC request versus an individual commissioner request, as only the full BOCC has the powers identified in Idaho Code 31-802 and Idaho Code 31-828 to supervise one of its members or otherwise. Can you confirm if Luke Ahmed is making this request in his representative capacity for the full BOCC? And if so, he has full BOCC approval. This is important to identify the requester and especially to determine whether the BOCC is waiving any privilege attached to the requested Williams-Marshall communications. Also, please confirm the intended legal effect of Ahmed stating that the full BOCC is exercising its supervisory 31-802 and 31-828 powers over emails of one of its members. It is unclear why and what legal effect Luke Ahmed is intending by the citation to this additional legal authority under the Public Records Act, or otherwise, should we be processing this request in a different way than any other public records request in virtue of the citation of that authority. And here was my request. This is a public record request in my official capacity as a Bonner County Commissioner in accordance with Idaho Code 31-802 and Idaho Code 31-828. Please provide the following records in a digital format. All emailed communications between Sheriff Darrell Wheeler and Commissioner Asia Williams between May 1st, 2022 and January 8th, 2023. All emailed communications between Prosecutor Lewis Marshall and Commissioner Asia Williams between May 1st, 2022 and January 8th, 2023. All email communications between Cindy Binkert and Commissioner Asia Williams from May 1st, 2022 and October 30th, 2023. This is from Bill. I actually had questions about this too, Luke. I don't think it's productive to cite the board's oversight function when making private records requests. There is no exception to the rules governing requests when they come from a commissioner. Put another way, it is generally accepted that each elected gets to control their own data, and Idaho Code 31-802 does not change that. You are free to make records requests just like anyone else, but you don't have enhanced access to county-generated documents by virtue of your office. Veronica, I think we should process this request like any other. I have CC'd Lewis here in case he wishes to contribute to the conversation. Now we have from Lewis Marshall. The supervision statutes 31-802 and 31-828 have been interpreted by the Idaho Supreme Court as construing only limited powers and only pursuant to specific authorizations of power. Further, in Miller v. Smith, the court made clear a single member of the board is not empowered to act alone. I think Scott is correct in saying either it is a purely public records request subject to the limitations any member of the public would have, or if it is being done in a supervisory role, it must be done by vote of the BOCC. The supervisory vote role the commissioners play, especially with judicial officers such as the prosecutor, is limited to taking in and expending monies. There is absolutely no chance a court would extend to this information. Additionally, some of the requests are before Asia became a commissioner. The BOCC would not have any supervision of her before she assumed office. This likely make it easier, as I don't think she would be able to claim any privilege on those emails with me, and those could be released if they had to do with county business. I would also remind all, these records requests are taking a lot of time and resources, and would respectfully request if things could be handled informally to use that route. Lewis and Bill, and this is the final one of this exchange. I scheduled an executive session for litigation tomorrow's business meeting, Tuesday, 11/7/23. I will present my request for documents to the BOCC and see if I can convince another commissioner to vote with me to make this official. I am happy to have these requests be unofficial. It appears that this is not the direction your office is taking. Public records are public records. The expenditure of taxpayer funds are the genesis of these requests. You are both invited to attend tomorrow and present your concerns. And that was it. Like I have said before, I am not a lawyer. I don't play one, but I do request advice from lawyers. I did not get a response to that. Because I'm an exciting person over the weekend, I was thinking about it and I went back into the public records manual and read, and it appears that we could have been wrong in our open meeting law violation. And I emailed Bill Wilson requesting advice. And then on Monday, I came, and the first thing I did when I came to work is I said, how do we cure this violation? I did not receive legal counsel. I haven't received legal counsel since April, but it goes back and forth. And part of the suit, and silly me, when we're being sued for something, I consider that to be litigation, but this could partially be because I'm not a lawyer. And so I will say that I sat on the Sandpoint Planning and Zoning Commission for a year, and I have observed their meetings. At every meeting, there is an attorney present. Starting in April, I started asking because I am not an attorney. I don't play one. I don't want to play an attorney. I do want to be a commissioner, and I do want to safeguard taxpayer funds. So the other things, yesterday I spent 3 hours in the jail. My goodness, we have some challenges with the jail. Those staff members are incredible. We are hurting on personnel in regards to our jail. Expenses are up, personnel is down, and we are struggling in regards to being able to staff our jail. While I was there was a fight. I was talking and more of listening to what's going on, and what those people want, they want support. They need humans. It takes approximately a year to 2 years to get a person trained to be a jailer. We have, I want to say it was approximately 110 residents is the term at the jail. And while we were there, I don't know what was going on, but suddenly I'm speaking with the staff and then they're like, gotta go. Away they run out. And then I spoke with Lieutenant Newsom and he showed me that they were breaking up a fight, and then some residents came through bloodied. Those people need our support. They deserve our support because it appears that their beds are full. And I am committed to keeping our county safe, keeping our employees safe, and $3.5 million certainly can hire an employee or 2 or 3. We had the ski swap this weekend at the fairgrounds, and I want to commend Marcus Robbins and his team. I got a request from Jason Welker, who works with SARS, trying to figure out what to do. And by the time I got back to him, he goes, Marcus is here working hard and he has completed that. So a heartfelt expression of gratitude from this commissioner to Marcus Robbins with the Bonner County Sheriff's Office for making sure that that event could proceed and people can get their skis and they can recreate in this wonderful place that we live. Also, this weekend at the fairgrounds, there is the local Christmas craft fair. So I would encourage you all to go and spend a bunch of money if you have it. And if you don't, do what you can. The season is coming. Mr. Moore brought up there is a United Against Hate event. I have registered. I intend to attend at 2 with the U.S. District Attorney's Office. I don't know if there are still seats available, but yes, I did register to attend and I'm going to go listen. Also, last week, Commissioner Bradshaw and I attended the Idaho Human Rights Commission anti-harassment training that was put on, and I brought my certificate to show that I achieved something because it's the first quarter and kids are getting ready to have their parent-teacher conferences, which I will be doing. There were some comments made about mobile homes, and I'd like to bring this forward because I think it speaks volumes. This is something that was found. Welcome to Ahmet, Bradshaw, Bonner County Dream, and it shows an RV. And I found this interesting because we have employees who reside in RVs because they can't find a place to live. Growing up, when my parents were building their home, I lived in an RV. So maybe what some people would like us to say is, welcome to Bonner County. People pursuing their own American dream, not wanted. You can come here if you have enough money and we give you permission. Well, it was also Veterans Day over the weekend, and my version of freedom might be different than some of yours, but that's what makes this country great. And I look forward to continuing to support the Constitution of the United States and everybody's pursuit of their American dream.
Is the trailer park at your backyard? Oh, no.
And that concludes my report.
Can I pause you and ask that we state an announcement here?
Oh, yep.
I'm asking.
Yeah.
Can I?
Yes, Commissioner.
So, the notice for the special meeting at 2:30 did have mistakes. We're going to cancel that meeting after consult with, legal. My request is actually that the board not do it as a special meeting, but just tack it on to Tuesday's business meeting. That way community can attend, but we can't have the meeting at 2:30 as there was some errors made.
Thank you, Commissioner. All right, our next agendized item is now the, oh, no, pardon me, I don't normally take questions, but Mr. Leedy, do you have I'll take it. Your hands up. What can I do for you, Mr. Leedy?
Well, I just want to address the issues of what's going on with lawsuits in Bonner County and holding people accountable. And it occurs to me that one of the things that we don't see happening is holding our Sheriff Wheeler accountable. He did make some disparaging remarks about Darcy Smith and her family. And we don't seem to be addressing that while we're addressing whether or not Commissioner Omdot is saying things that can upset an employee of the county. We're not addressing that the sheriff literally did make false accusations, unsubstantiated accusations against Darcy Smith, who's unable to defend herself, and against her family. And that does set you up for a lawsuit. I'd like to see the commissioners addressing that. Commissioner Williams stated nobody asked her what she's been doing. I was going to ask, but I didn't get the opportunity. But I'd like to know what she's doing about that, holding our sheriff accountable. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Leedy. I'm going to, well,
So
Ms.
only
Mo-
the people that you like can speak, but not, I can't ask questions. I don't understand.
well, that was my report. His hand was up and it is at the discretion of the chair, but because you're here, Ms. Bowman, please ask your question.
Okay, yeah,
But-
it's not necessarily a question. It's more of a comment just to the RV park situation. I too grew up in a single wide trailer, very poor. And this has nothing to do with that. What this has to do with, just so that we're all clear, folks, about what RV parks can go anywhere in the county. They are appropriate from a planning standpoint in recreational zones, in suburban zones, in commercial zones, just like mobile home parks. But what the county commissioners, these two have sought to do is put them everywhere. So I want you to look at your property next door to you. If there's a 100-acre property there, the RVs can be 10 feet apart. This is an issue about none of those people are going to be paying taxes. Okay. What's going to happen is there are going to be RV parks everywhere if this one goes through. That's what this is about.
Thank you for your comment, Ms. Bowman. And we are going to proceed to our agenda. And the next item on our agenda is the consent agenda, and I would entertain a motion as such.
I move to approve the consent agenda.
I'd second that.
There is a motion and a second. Is there any discussion amongst the Board of County Commissioners?
I have no questions.
Roll call vote.
Commissioner Williams,
Yes.
Commissioner Ahmed,
Yes,
Yes.
the motion carries. Our next agendized item is Clerk Rosedale. Oh, I apologize. Mr. Rosedale, if you would pause for a moment. Thank you, Mr. Moore. The expenditures for over $5,000 for the business meeting is risk management is $10,000 for travelers lost fund deposit. The courts have bulletproof vests for $7,394.64. There was a courthouse key card entry system for $9,820.18. And technology Zoom virtual meetings renewal is for $5,994.40.
So the 10,000 for travelers, that was just a partial payment.
Correct. Mr. Rosedale.
Okay, thank you. Before I get to this, I just wanted to, there was I think a misstatement. Ms. Williams said that Elizabeth Glazier beat out Troy Reinbold. It's the opposite. Troy Reinbold had 285 votes to Glazier's 186.
Oh, thank you for correcting
Yep.
that.
Okay, so before you commissioners, I have fiscal year 24 claims batch number 3 in the amount of $1,827,690.41. And demand batch number 3 in the amount of $264,978.63, totaling $2,092,669.04 for your approval.
Move to approve payment of the FY 24 claims and demands in batch number 3 totaling $2,092,669.04.
I second the motion.
There's a motion, and a second. Is there any public discussion on this agendized item?
We have Doug on the line there.
Oh, thank you. Doug?
Yes, I noticed that the total for the month is above average, and I'm noticing also that the demands are relatively high. If could you please go over, as usual, the expensive demands and give me some explanation on the above average bill for the month?
Bonner County is a little above average, like Lake Lodion, I think, but the demands are the big ones. We have $67,000 for medical, another $67,000 for medical. We have about $23,000 for dental. We have about $19,000 for the sheriff's office software, about $9,000 for biweekly fuel. And we have another $18,000 for road and bridge fuel. Those are the big hitters for that.
So when you say medical, you mean insurance, medical insurance?
Medical payouts, yep, because we're self-insured for that.
Doug, could you put your hand down if you're?
Thank you. Thank you.
Is there any discussion amongst the Board of Commissioners?
No discussion.
Seeing none, roll call vote.
Commissioner Williams?
Yes.
Commissioner Hammett?
Yes.
Commissioner Bradshaw?
Yes. Thank you. Next, I have fiscal year 24 EMS batch number 3 in the amount of $43,889.62. And demand batch number 3 in the amount of $8,048.37, totaling $51,937.99 for your approval.
I move to approve payment of the FY 24 EMS claims and demands in batch number 3 totaling $51,937.99.
Would second that.
There is a motion and a second. Is there any public discussion on this agendized item? Hearing none, is there any discussion amongst the Board of Commissioners?
No questions.
Roll call vote.
Commissioner Williams?
Yes.
Commissioner Hammett?
Yes,
Commissioner Bradshaw?
Yes.
the motions carry. Our next agendized item is facilities with Miss Teddy Lupton.
Good morning, Teddy Lupton for the record. The Facilities Department is requesting approval from the Board of County Commissioners to have the clerk transfer $50,000 from the Justice Funds Facilities line item 034107530 to the Justice Fund Sheriff's Building Maintenance line item 034507430. The reason for the funds transfer is to satisfy the transfer of facilities maintenance staff to the Sheriff's Office maintenance staff to ensure better service for the facility.
Can I just ask clarification that that's what justice funds can pay for the salary? Is that an annual? Are you looking to cover the cost of someone's salary with that?
This is for their maintenance costs.
Not the maintenance individual that was transferred?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, based on the information before me, I move the county approve resolution 2023-91. Authorized transfer of $50,000 from Justice Fund Facilities 03410/7530 to the Justice Fund Sheriff's Building Maintenance Budget 0364550/7430, and authorize the chairman to sign administratively.
I second the motion.
There's a motion and a second. Excuse me, is there any public comment? Mr.
Kevin
Moore?
Moore for the record. So yeah, a lot of word salad there, whatever, but hopefully this is where our commissioners come to the fore, whatever, to really know what this dialogue is all about and that you're all on board with that.
Mr. Moore, I believe in all
I
that.
can explain it if you'd like.
Well, let me see if I got this right.
Okay.
If something breaks at the jail where we have the residents that I referred to, or at the Justice Services, this is to fix it.
Yes.
How far off am I?
Well, I was trying to more on the thing of the transfer of transferring 50,000 from one account to another account. That we don't really follow that out here, whatever, so I'm hoping that you guys are on top of it, that that's appropriate.
It's coming from my budget that I already have, and what has happened is I did a study. And the sheriff's office was about 50% of our calls for repairs. So I transferred one of my employees out there for full time to do preventative maintenance on a daily basis to try and bring the costs down for repairs. So I'm giving, because I transferred a employee out there, then I'm also giving them money because they didn't have a maintenance fund.
And you are head of facilities, so how many employees do you have under your umbrella?
Mr. Moore, the agendized item today, and we've taken a lot of time, but that is not the agendized item. The agendized item is the $50,000 transfer, which is based upon the Justice Fund Sheriff's Building Maintenance. We aren't talking about personnel at this time.
Well, the question was connected with facility.
Thank you, Mr. Moore. Is there any other public? Randy, Mr. Stoltz.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, Mr. Stoltz.
Quick question. Is this just for maintenance at the jail, or does this also encompass maintenance at the juvenile facility?
Just the jail.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Is there any other public comment on this agendized item? Is there any discussion amongst the Board of Commissioners?
I have no questions.
Hearing none, roll call vote.
Commissioner Williams.
Yes.
Commissioner Ahmed.
Yes,
Commissioner Bradshaw.
Yes.
the motion carries. Thank you. Deputy Geechee, are you there? Oh, I see
Yes,
you.
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yeah, please go ahead. And this is from the Sheriff's Department, Marine.
Thank you, Commissioners. Lieutenant Doug McGeechy for the record. I bring before you this morning a resolution to carry forward funds from last fiscal year to the current fiscal year. These funds were received in community donations in the amount of $15,000 to assist in the purchase of a changeable message sign that will be used to communicate voter safety messages to the public at public boat launches and various locations around the county. The sign did not arrive before the end of the fiscal year, and so therefore we have to purchase it in the current fiscal year and are asking that the monies be moved so that can be accomplished.
Based on the information before us, I'd move to approve resolution 2392, authorizing the transfer of funds from the Marine Division's FY 2023 miscellaneous revenue line item ending in 5670 to FY 2024 equipment line item ending 8590 in the amount of $15,000.
Second that.
There's a motion and a second. Is there any public comment on this agendized item? Is there any discussion amongst the Board of Commissioners?
I have no questions.
Hearing none, roll call vote.
Commissioner Williams.
Yes.
Commissioner Ahmed.
Yes,
Commissioner Bradshaw.
Yes.
the motion carries. Thank you, Lieutenant.
He's got one more.
Oh,
So
apologies.
having the resolution approved, the next item is just a request to purchase the changeable message sign with this year's fiscal year funds in the amount of $15,000.
No, go ahead.
It was your turn. I just didn't.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, based on the information before us, I move to renew the approval to purchase the changeable message sign for the Marine Division from Stalker Radar Applied Concepts Incorporated in the amount of $15,000.
I second the motion.
There's a motion and a second. Is there any public comment on this agendized item? Is there any discussion amongst the Board of Commissioners?
I have no questions.
Hearing none, roll call vote.
Commissioner Williams.
Yes.
Commissioner Ahmed.
Yes,
Commissioner Bradshaw.
Yes.
Thank you, Commissioners.
thank you, Lieutenant. The motion carries. Our next agendized item is solid waste. Ms. Galt.
Good morning, Commissioners. Melissa Galt for the record. Bonner County Solid Waste has a 4-year backhoe lease purchase agreement with Umpqua Bank that requires notification of intent to renew for the fiscal year. We recommend the Commissioners approve the letter of intent to renew with Umpqua Bank for municipal lease purchase agreements, lease number 2284097 for one backhoe with an annual payment of $24,888.75. Funds have been approved for fiscal year 24. in the solid waste capital lease budget line item 0239350.
Based on the information before us, I move to approve the county approve the letter of intent to renew the backhoe lease purchase agreement with Umpqua Bank and the chairman to sign the agreement administratively.
Second that.
There is a motion and a second. Is there any public comment on this agendized item? Mr. Moore?
Get more for the record. So we've been paying 24,888 for 4 years already, and now we're renewing to another 4 year.
This is the second year. We just have to renew the intent that we're going to continue with the lease.
Is there any other public comment on this agendized item? Is there any discussion amongst the Board of Commissioners?
I have no questions.
Nope. Good.
Hearing none, roll call vote.
Commissioner Williams.
Yes.
Commissioner Ahmed.
Yes.
Commissioner Bradshaw.
Yes.
Thank you, Ms. Galt. Oh, our next item is me. All right. Acknowledgement of November 13th through 19th, 2023 is National Apprenticeship Week. Description. National Apprenticeship Week is celebrating its 9th anniversary of raising awareness of the vital role registered apprenticeships provide in creating opportunities by allowing apprentices to earn while they learn and preparing a pathway to good quality jobs and well-paying careers in Bonner County and across the nation. This was submitted to the Bonner County Board of Commissioners by the Governor's Office to see if we would agree that we value apprenticeships. Governor Little and the State Board of Education has created the Launch Program. This program is designed to build an Idaho workforce for non-traditional methods because so many of our high school students upon graduation are leaving for more affordable areas and to provide them with funds to support non-traditional education such as plumbers, electricians, in-demand careers, hence the Launch assignation or the assignment of such. And it is a wonderful opportunity and a great investment into our future by the taxpayers of Idaho. And that was the genesis behind this. So with that being said, is there a motion to proclaim November 13th through 19th, 2023 as National Apprenticeship Week?
Mr. Chairman, based on the information before us, I move to approve the Bonner County proclamation acknowledging National Apprenticeship Week, November 13th through 19th, 2023.
I'll second it.
There is a motion and a second. Is there any public comment on? Mr. Martin, go ahead. Mr. Martin, do you have a comment on National Apprenticeship Week?
There we go. Thank you, commissioners. Thank you, Commissioner Almond, about raising this and bringing it forward. Not only for the nation, but for the county. And I applaud you for, bringing this forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Martin. Is there any other public comment on this agendized item? Roll call vote.
Commissioner
Or-
Williams.
Yeah, I didn't have a
I
discussion.
apologize. Okay. Was there any discussion amongst the board?
I
Roll
think
call.
it's a great deal. We're running out of people that are going into the crafts which keep this nation moving.
All right. Hearing no further discussion, roll call vote.
Commissioner Williams.
Yes.
Commissioner Ahmed.
Yes.
Commissioner Bradshaw.
Yes.
I will now read the proclamation into the record. Whereas National Apprenticeship Week is celebrating its 9th anniversary of raising awareness of the vital role registered apprenticeship provide in creating opportunities by allowing apprentices to earn while they learn and preparing a pathway to good quality jobs and well-paying careers in Bonner County and across the nation. And whereas registered apprenticeship programs enable employers to develop and train their future workforce while offering career seekers affordable paths to securing high-paying jobs. And Whereas Bonner County, in partnership with Apprenticeship Idaho, recognizes the role of registered apprenticeship in expanding opportunities in our workforce that are inclusive of individuals who have been historically underserved, marginalized, and adversely affected by persistent poverty and inequality, thus providing a path for all qualified individuals, including women, youth, people of color, rural communities, justice-involved individuals, and individuals with disabilities to become apprentices and contribute to America's industries. And whereas Bonner County recognizes that registered apprenticeship, a proven and industry-driven training model, is a key strategy to improving job quality and creating access to good-paying, family-sustaining jobs for all, starting with youth and young adults, while addressing some of our nation's pressing workforce challenges, such as rebuilding our country's infrastructure, addressing critical supply chain demands, supporting a clean energy workforce, modernizing our cybersecurity response, and responding to care economy issues. Now therefore be it resolved that Bonner County Board of Commissioners does hereby acknowledge National Apprenticeship Week, November 13th through 19th, 2023, duly approved by the Bonner County Board of Commissioners this 14th day of November, 2023. Commissioner Williams, you are next.
All right, so I have an action, discussion, decision regarding utilization of one central email address for commissioners. We have a significant amount of kind of people wanting to know what's going on in emails. And so the thought came, there are other counties where you just email to Board of Commissioners and everybody has access. That would help to reduce the need for the records request. It would be a significant assistance to the community as a whole. So my motion is to remove the individual commissioner email addresses and have one centralized email for all commissioners. Part of what I'm seeing from this board is it is a specific to Asia Williams move. If it's the right thing, then it's the right thing for the board, not just an individual. So my request is a motion utilization of centralized email address for the Board of Commissioners and remove private emails as an option. I've seen there are complaints from members of the community where feel like they can't have aren't getting responses in email form. This would help fix a lot of the issues. So that's my motion.
I will step down from the chair and second the motion for discussion. Mr. Moore.
Yeah, get more for the record. So again, spontaneously reacting here. Yeah, that's, to me, that just makes common sense, whatever, to where anybody out there could just send an email, all get it, then they can respond if they determine. And then if the citizen wants to go individually, then he can go individually to that another email. So it sounds like it made good sense to me.
Thank you.
Clerk Rosedale.
Hi, Mike Rosedale for the record. I understand the desire to do that. We do have technology that can field and sift through emails. My concern would be having a meeting with the commissioners outside the public purview. So like if I was going to email Luke about something a lot and Steve and Asia were in on it, it would be as if they're actually getting my, all that kind of information, as opposed to me just talking directly with Asia or directly with Steve. It seems like you could have like a serial meeting effect, that kind of a thing, or so I don't know if that would be care would be met. That'd be something I would ask legal about.
I did ask legal.
There would
Bill
be
Wilson
some
said it
legal
was okay.
ramifications to it.
I spoke with Bill Wilson specifically on this, and it is something that other counties do. And so what it will result in is actually if you had a discussion that you wanted serial, it needs to come into the open forum of public meetings. So we have that discussion openly and not a repeated on one topic. And that's
Right.
If you see all of the people that are doing records requests for information, it pulls it into the light of the community, allows the people to hear it, and then there's not an issue. So Bill Wilson was already involved in what would that look like. Kootenai County actually does one email for Board of Commissioners.
So my concern would be, let's say I wanted to talk to you about funding a Blanchard Town Hall, something that would need to have a motion before the board, all that kind of stuff. If I sent it to all of you, then all of the back and forth would have been happening outside of a meeting like this. And I understand their pros and cons, but that's just what I want.
But
my
but
concern.
your email shouldn't be an email. It should be a request to go on the agenda, which is what's not happening.
So
so
what
it-
that'll limit then our ability to email is what you're saying.
No, it says that if you want to ask about what your example of funding something in Blanchard, why is not happening in this meeting where you say, commissioners, I would like you to place this item on agenda for review and discussion.
Because in my case, I want to know, do you think that's a good idea, Commissioner? Do you think, is there a better place? What, before it even gets there, would that be an option? But if that whole conversation happened to the whole board, that is what I'm worried about.
I think that that issue versus the problem that's going on in the county isn't as important because you have it's not that you don't have an avenue for that. If you want to know an individual opinion on something that you want to go forward with, there is no reason to not pull that into the open meeting process. That's what's happening. As I sit here and go through people sifting through saying part of a conversation, it should just be transparent for everybody. And then your conversation can happen. It's just that it's an open public meeting. I understand what you're saying. It's not that it's the best option, but what we have right now is a situation where it is a lot of people. For example, this comment about Scott Bauer being my personal person. You actually asked me that comment. I had no idea, but now that I see
That
the
was a response
emails,
to your comment.
no, I understand that, but now I see where you're getting it from, but there's something that's missing was the conversation that was before and after an email sent. And so these emails are being used to actually attack from a political aspect instead of doing the business of Bonner County. We need to focus on our job, which is Bonner County business and not attacking people. This will remove all of that stuff. The public who says there's an email that I need to find, but I can't find it, would already know it because they had people they trusted on that receipt of that email. And so if Commissioner Williams, who's the only one getting these requests for all of these emails and the board members who want to be in my inbox, if this is not a unanimous decision to use one, that's your person that is above reproach. It
So-
isn't me.
So my experience with record requests is that my office gets them quite a bit and we immediately get them out. I think Clarissa's office does, Engelhardt does, a lot of them do. I don't think the holdup's there. I think IT produces them. The holdup isn't where the email is. I think it's being where it's being proofed for legal sufficiency. I know there are a lot of email requests out where it's out there, but they're not being produced. That's not the cause of them not being produced.
I'm not arguing any of what you just said. I'm saying one email address would, for example, the Amit's Trust Luke Amit, that's their person. If he had access to everything that I had access to, their issue of Asia's hiding this magical email is gone because he has access to actually see it. We are creating a problem that's not sustainable for Bonner County. So I am saying just everybody use the same one. And if that causes hardship for other elected officials, maybe we should have spoke up before we got to this point because the amount of public records requests is not sustainable. Legal has brought that forward. Bill Wilson has specifically said, you have members of the public that are saying, we are late on giving them responses. It would be easy because all technology would have to do is download every single email, post it online, community has access to it. And it doesn't make it, it's not reasonable. I understand that it's a lot of extra work for people that want to do what you're saying, but we have to have a solution for what's happening right now. And it should be consistent. It shouldn't just be one commissioner issue.
Heartily agree with that. It should be consistent. It doesn't appear to be consistent. Do any of you have record requests that have not been answered or filled?
Yes.
All right, thank you for hearing.
Thank you.
Dave Bowman for the record. I think it's a fantastic idea. And I mean, you want openness in government and transparency, here it is. This is the solution to it. And I initially had the same concerns as Clerk Rosedale, because you could easily get into a serial meeting situation, but Asia brings up the great way to avoid it. You just don't have them. And if somebody wants to have a discussion about a certain thing that's going to be put on the agenda, then put it on the agenda, have it in an open meeting, and it's all out in the open. And a lot of things are solved this way. It's unfortunate that the way this board has operated has brought it to this point, but oh well, it's a solution to a problem. And if you want to have meetings with commissioners, have them out in the open so everybody gets to hear everything that's going on.
Ms. Anderson.
Hello, Christina Nicholas Sanderson again for the record. My question is, I know that you said that this would be a transparent thing, and I think that sounds really positive. I know that you recently said that the reason some of your emails haven't been able to go out, at least as I understand it, is that they have to go through legal in case there needs to be any redacting or anything like that. Did I understand that correctly?
I don't know where you got the comment from, but I do know that there are emails that have to get approved by legal to be released. So sometimes if the content is like human resources, employee related, that doesn't get released to the public. And so it isn't my email. That is the process for email releasing. It is not specific to myself as a commissioner.
Okay, so I may be mistaken. I thought it was something about Luke or Commissioner Ahmet had asked for all your emails or something, and I thought there was some process where it had to go to legal before he could get them. So I may have misunderstood that. So where I was going with this is if it's one shared email, why would they have to be redacted or whatever for him to get them? If you would share an email, there would be no redacting.
So you're conflating two different issues. You're asking, how do you address something from today for my request? So if you had one email system by which communication happened, it would be the same process. If there's a legal email before it gets released, legal would still have to review it before they released it.
But not amongst each other. You guys would all have access to that.
Correct.
Okay, got it. And then the other thing is, I recently sent you emails that have been distributed to other people, like the sheriff, somebody else in planning that I don't know who that is. So how would that change if you had a shared email system? Would there still be this forwarding and including people like you included the sheriff in a fair board meeting conversation, and I wasn't sure why or how he was included.
So
how would that change?
So to be clear, what you were talking about was doing a public event at the fairground. And so security is part of what that happens. And that's one of the things that was happening is you were requesting something outside of the usual form. And so that is why it got forwarded. I don't just arbitrarily forward information. So it would still be the same. If somebody asks me a planning question as a commissioner, it is for me to respect the director's position and forward that email on to make sure that the answer that you're getting is from that group of people. And then sometimes I'll follow up with did you get your questions answered? So it is reasonable to have your information forwarded. Some people always will copy a commissioner on an email that they send to planning. So it's no different. Your email needs to get to the right location. And so if it isn't me, I'm going to forward it and say, I forwarded your information on to this person or whatever. So it'd be no different than that.
So point of clarification, then wouldn't that have gone to city because that's city jurisdiction rather than sheriff?
I thought that it was the sheriff, so I sent it. And so there isn't a need to say that to imply as if I did something negative, because I responded appropriately to what you requested. It wasn't inappropriate. And actually, I was told that they made sure that someone came to ensure the safety of the event that you had. So there wasn't anything negative
That's
about what
false,
I did.
just so you know.
It does.
Okay.
What I did was reasonable and appropriate.
Understood. I just wanted to clarify that nobody was there for safety.
Point of order, the agendized item to get us back to the order of the agenda is in regards to a centralized email account. Ms. Lunsford.
Amy Lunsford for the record. Okay, so that's really great for you guys. You guys give me tons of information. I don't have any problem with you guys constantly answering my emails. And most of the people in this building are excellent at giving information. So how is this solution going to bridge the gap that we have with Sheriff Wheeler, Lewis Marshall? How are we going to get information? Where is their emails going to be centralized?
Ms. Lunsford. The agendized item that Commissioner Williams has before us is only in reference to the Board of Commissioners. We have zero authority over the custodial records of. I rarely tell Clerk Rosedale what to do, and he rarely ever listens because he is the clerk and he has statutory authority. And Assessor Engelhardt, I have no authority over his emails either. So, and that is not the agendized item. It's only for the Board of Commissioners emails is Commissioner. is Commissioner, what, am I correct in that? You are you trying to do it?
My-
Why not just, I guess I'll wait, but I'm just wondering why we just don't do one across all electeds. Let's get rid of all elected officials emails. So only have one central repository. I know that I've only gone through 3,000 emails so far. So I mean, if we multiply that, that'd be like 27,000 emails. We'd get even less work done. Oh, back to the order of agenda, Dr. Fletcher.
Thomas Fletcher for the record. I 100% support what you just finished saying. And in fact, I think you touched upon the crux of what may be a potential issue here. The idea of having a common file is wonderful. We, of course, all want openness and understand what one another's doing. But what if, say, Bradshaw communicates with the sheriff? Now, he's a commissioner. Would that communication be part of your common pool?
That's a problem, isn't it?
Yes.
It's not a problem.
It absolutely is a problem.
If
And
you don't
Kootenai
want
County
the
has a
information,
Bonner,
let it
has
go.
a Kootenai County Commissioner's email, and they also have each individual commissioner has an email.
Yeah, you see.
We have
herein
one.
lies the
It's
problem.
called the Bonner County
And you-
Commissioner's Office.
Right, and you.
It already exists.
There are these silos, and there will inherently be zones where nobody can go. So you're proposing, it's a terrific proposal. I vote for it, go for it. But that motion will not mitigate the existence of these silos. A classic example, and I was reprimanded by someone in the audience. Last week, I pointed out how Hillary Clinton doing Secretary of State work had her own private server where she had communications. How does this proposal, this resolution, prevent one of you, or any county employee for that matter, conducting communications on their private server? This doesn't really solve the full problem, the full totality of the openness issue, the transparency issue, but I am in support of it.
It isn't intended to solve all of the problems, but it would solve a great many of the problems. And I'll point to our prosecutor's office. Due to the communication of members on this board, the prosecutor's office is not willing to provide responses individually to commissioners. So what they're doing is you send your question to them in writing on a form, and they respond to your individual requests. I've sent some to them, and one of them I read today, but they send it to all three commissioners. And so we are moving in that direction. So it will help with a lot of the issues that this board has. So yes, it's not perfect, but it is definitely a starting point to move forward with being more transparent. And there isn't a viable reason to say no, because legal would have to review when there's a record request comes into that box, it would still have to review for release. So
It's 11:49 and we are going to take a 5-minute recess.
You want to take a Didn't it?
And we are returning to our regularly scheduled business meeting, and our agendized item was Commissioner's first request regarding a centralized email for all of the commissioners with the elimination of individual email accounts. And we are returning to public comment. In the interest of time, I am going to limit it to the last two that I see online, because we still have more and we have some executive sessions to attempt to get through today. Brandon Kramer.
Yes, hello, Brandon Kramer for the record. I have several thoughts on the proposal. In one vein, I think that it's a good idea in order to remove some of the silos that are occurring in terms of the communication. On the other hand, I think an unintended consequence is that some individuals are still going to want to communicate outside of the bounds of what ends up inside of the public record. And when I say that, I mean they're specifically going to communicate outside of the context of email. And so an unintended consequence is that some of those communications will forever be lost. And I just wanted to raise that. That being said, I am in favor of it because I do think that it solves more problems than it actually creates.
Brandon, thank you for your comment. One of the things that's happening is actually, it's realized right now where people say they don't give a response in email, but they say an in-person contact. And so that will probably still happen, but the idea is more of the transparency. We make decisions as a board, we are a board, and the access to that information. One of the questions I had when discussing this was, what about when a individual in the public wants to just work with one commissioner? Well, that's fine, but at the end of the day, that correspondence is still public record. And so that's not enough justification to not move forward in that direction, because you've seen it here even today where someone reads an email that was sent by a member of the public, it's disclosable. And so the fact that someone prefers to just talk to a single commissioner doesn't change that it's discoverable. And so outside of that, there are people that are going to be uncomfortable and they'll say, can I meet you? And that'll be how that communication goes. But what the benefit of pushing more communication in the public meeting is actually beneficial to the county as a whole, which is why it's kind of the cost benefit of doing it versus not doing it. And to be clear, my motion doesn't say removal of the personal email, because there are emails that the way Kootenai has it set up is they do it all through their board, but there's a need for individual commissioners, for example, to be able to communicate with legal. And one of the things that adds is when legal has to look at those emails that come from that, they know that that's what that personal email address is for, or HR issues for the ones where a review is necessary. So it's not a complete fix for everything, but it is in the right direction to solve some of the problems. So Wayne Martin.
Wayne Martin for the record. I am in favor of it. Asia, you touched on it. The previous gentleman touched on it. You know, there are possibilities that any public official may have their own server and use that, which was brought up. There is the possibility of using a neighbor's server or finding a server someplace else where you have given money to somebody for doing supposed work, but that's to be spent for a server and all. There's always ways of attempting to hide things. but I think that this is a move in a positive way. And if there's a problem with it, this board can turn around and come back and create their own individual or agree to create their own individual emails. So I would like you to look positively towards this. And if there's problems, you address it in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Wayne.
All right, so I'm going to close public comment on this agendized item, and I will move into discussion for the Board of County Commissioners, and I'm confused, which is not out of the norm for me. Commissioner Williams, so would you repeat your motion, please?
It is to the utilization of a central email address for the board.
And so would the board, would our individual email accounts still exist?
Yes, the way that the system is set up in other counties is that the individual one is for the communication direct to legal. It's specifically used for that type of protected communication, and also to human resources. And it allows for one, it would actually allow, and Bill Wilson mentioned this, of if you had that centralized, just downloading all the emails and putting them on your website if you wanted to, so that people could go fish right there and significantly decrease your public records requests, which would help the county. And then it would provide people the opportunity, if they want to just read the emails of the board, then they can read the emails of the board.
So if I'm to understand this, so for example, would it be something like Bonner County Commissioners at bonnercountyid.gov?
I don't know the
Oh,
address.
well, I mean, that's why, for example, that's what I'm referencing. It would be commissioners at bonnercountyid.gov.
I believe there actually is a centralized email address. It's just not utilized by the board.
Well,
But
and
I don't know what the name would be, because you have to look at what's available. I'm saying just a centralized box.
okay. And then my second question is, I was of the understanding from my attempted conversations with legal that the board is supposed to submit a form, because I have not seen anything from legal on this, but as I listened, I somewhat got the idea that you had spoken with Prosecutor Wilson about this.
This was prior to if you recall, some communication from your desk made this move forward with the paper form. We didn't always have to send it by paper form. I'm just putting it on the agenda now.
Okay. I would move to amend the motion to table this until the entire board hears from our legal counsel. Is there a second?
I would second that.
There is a second in regards to the table, and there is no discussion on the motion to table. Roll call vote.
Commissioner Williams.
No.
Commissioner Ahmed.
Yes,
Commissioner Bradshaw.
Yes.
the motion is tabled. Commissioner Williams, your next agendized item.
To allocate a full-time employee to address public records requests. There's vital tasks within Bonner County that are not being accomplished due to the number of public records requests. It's not the job of anybody that releases to say the wire to require anything special, but legal has come before this board and said, we need assistance with the public records request. There are members of the public who are saying that they have not received their responses. So my request is actually that the board review the FTE for specific records requests, because we are not in line with what the statute requires of us, and the people aren't getting their records, and legal has to review more than they have ever before because of some of the way these requests are coming in. And so it's reasonable for the board to allocate funds to address the public records requests.
Before you get to your motion, I was of the impression, and I believe I'm correct, that we have a full-time employee, Veronica Dixon, who is already employed in this position and has been assigned these duties.
We do
So
have a person assigned to these duties, but it's not, that person is not able to keep up with the amount of FT or public records requests.
is it that person or is it actually the legal? Because here I will read into the record, and this is definitely in regards to well, actually, I guess I'm also so are you advocating before us to hire a full-time employee outside of the budget?
It doesn't necessarily mean hiring someone. You could find someone that could add this onto their tasks. Veronica doesn't work on Mondays. I don't know. Bill Wilson has come before us saying they're not able to keep up. And so I'm not gonna say it's because of Veronica or it's because of legal. The community told you they have records requests that are outstanding that haven't been responded to. The clerks also received these requests. Assistance was requested. You yourself have a significant number of records requests that require legal review. I'm saying we need to address the problem of we don't have enough personnel to manage the requests. They come with a timeliness requirement, and we are not meeting the expectations of the laws regarding records requests.
So what I'm hearing is that you want to add an additional position. Okay. Do you have a motion to put on the floor?
Addition of an FTE specifically for public records requests is my motion.
Is there a second? The motion dies. Next agendized item.
All right, so I think it was 3 commissioner meetings ago, I put forth the request of doing officially the Fair Board audit. It was received with support, and the motion that was put forth at that time specifically was to try and identify an audit firm that would audit the Fair Board. Since then, the board created an audit committee with constraints. Legal has provided some responses via email that what they're requesting was not reasonable and appropriate, as one of the things was, I am not on the audit committee, but it was restriction of communication, which means I couldn't communicate on it, and also violating the fact that we passed a motion that I was searching for a company that would audit our issues. So I'm putting forth an actual request. Legal has given an opinion regarding this audit committee that we actually disband the audit committee that was formed, as it delegates powers of the board and individual commissioners.
Yet again, before we get, I don't know if that was a motion, but before we get into that, I'd like to better understand what you are stating. I have the minutes here from November 2nd, 2023, where it says there was a discussion regarding the need for an annual audit. There have been changes this year, and due to these changes, the clerk suggested establishing an audit committee. There is nothing in there that was talked about, implied, inferred, stated, where anybody's ability to speak to the auditor. There was no delegation of authority ever mentioned, spoken, implied, inferred, other than after the fact. The purpose of the audit committee is because there is a legal process, which we are now partially being sued over, going back to that 3.5 million number, about audits. And here before us, I brought down the audited financial statements of Bonner County. And I'm not an auditor, just like I'm not a lawyer, and I don't pretend to be one, but I can read some of these statements. And in these audit committees, it says the schedule of findings and question costs, summary of auditor results, the type of auditor's report issued, the internal control over financial reporting. Are material weaknesses identified? No. Were there significant deficiencies identified? No. Non-compliance material to financial statements noted? No. Federal control over major programs and material weaknesses identified? No. Were there significant deficiencies identified? Yes. Types of auditor's report issued on compliance for major programs? Unmodified. Are there any audit findings disclosed that are required to be reported in accordance with section 2 CFR section 200.516A? Yes. And it goes on. But what I see is that there is, and the purpose of the audit committee is, first you do a request for proposal. And I see that we have Treasurer Costa here and Clerk Rosedale, which is convenient because they're kind of the experts and 2 of us are pretty new on this. So there is a process where you have a request for proposal. And we have to go through that because I believe the audit costs us in the neighborhood of $50-something thousand. in the neighborhood of 50,000. Then we also have the audited financial statements from 21 and 22, and we have been utilizing a firm to do so. So I'm not quite sure what your motion is or where the information came from, because I was at that meeting and I don't recall in any way, shape, or form delegating any authority of the Board of Commissioners to the audit committee.
Commissioner Ahmet, you're ignoring your email correspondence with Lewis Marshall on this.
Oh, I have that.
One, you said that Bill Wilson was going to sit on this committee. Bill Wilson emailed all three commissioners and said he did not agree to sit on this committee. Lewis Marshall also explained to you in email, you have consistently emailed him in a less than cooperative tone to where he told you he will no longer have these exchanges unless it's going to be on their official form. Whether or not you move forward with disbanding this committee, because after Lewis Marshall gave his comment and Bill Wilson emailed the group saying he never agreed, and he said correctly, I had no idea we were going to set this committee up, let alone that I would be on it. I said I would help draft an RFP if needed, but then he also said that it might be something better in a different department. I actually, after Bill made that statement, I said, sent an email to everybody and I said, so is the clerk and the treasurer still wanting to move forward with this committee or not? Because Lewis Marshall sent you very clear responses regarding the verbiage that you used for this audit committee. So it is not recommended. And so in order and in the interest of time, we can just move forward. Are you going to officially disband this audit committee that does not come with the recommendation of legal? I will point out also that it doesn't have the identification of the roles and responsibilities. It doesn't tell you the type of audit committee, doesn't tell you the scope of the audit committee, doesn't tell you the process. And I actually have an email from Clerk Rosedale in response to Lewis's statement. Clerk Rosedale said, I do not believe an audit committee is necessary. I just don't want to lose another auditor. And so my request is just to disband this. Let's identify who is the right person to find the company. We need to move forward. And so what we're looking at is we have an issue that happened with Fair Board. We need to make that Fair Board clean so that we can hand it off and have clear understanding of where we are moving forward from the clerk's office, make sure their needs are met, make sure the treasurer's needs are met, and have a clean audit that moves forward for the future. We agreed to do that. And I'll remind that during that discussion, the clerk came up to the microphone more than one time saying that's the direction we need to go. We just need to get an audit done, but this is not the right way to do it. One of the things that is in the thread between Commissioner Ahmet and Lewis Marshall is that the communication is only within this audit committee. As you can imagine, I'm not on the audit committee. It is actually now Clerk Rosedale, the treasurer, and then Commissioner Bradshaw. That's the audit committee. Bill Wilson is not agreeable to be on it. And there was no community member at large set on it either. So my request is to disband it, follow legal's opinion regarding how we move forward. If you don't want to do it, it's fine. But I want to put it on there to say we have a problem with it. My voice, just because you guys make up a motion and vote 2-1, it doesn't actually make it necessarily legal, and it doesn't bind. So if I have a question of someone that is an auditor that's doing something, because you formed an audit committee that says Asia's not on the committee, therefore she can't ask, it doesn't make it so. So let's use this as an opportunity to do what we need to do for the county, which is we need an auditor. But using a committee to push a commissioner out of this doesn't make any sense from a legal perspective, because you do not have Bill Wilson agreeing, and he is the attorney of the board. And if that is the case, we need to review it for whether it's reasonable and appropriate. It could be appropriate if it wasn't done prematurely and it had more teeth to it. I don't know, because this was something that was done in a special meeting. So my motion is to disband it.
Hold on, Commissioner Williams. We have Clerk Rosedale. I'm not prepared to entertain your motion at this time. Mr. Rosedale.
Mike Rosedale for the record. So with the audit committee, there has been actual tremendous slander thrown against our external auditor by an elected official and by a Bonner County employee. That is clear. My suggestion of an audit committee was just so that we can present all the questions fielded by everybody to the external auditor, but through a filtered way. I'm okay with not having this audit committee. And in the motion here or on the heading, it said delegating the powers of the board. It was never delegating the powers of the board, to be clear. The board has the power to select the auditor, and it should be all three of you interviewing at once, not one person. Asia said that she she was excluded. There should be only one person, possibly commissioner, finding the external auditor. I don't believe that's correct. I think all three of you should do it.
So be clear, I
Let
didn't
me
say
fin-
that.
May I finish? So all I'm saying is, you've already suggested one, White Pine, which is a financial
I
management.
did
It's
not-
not an external
I did
auditor.
not, so be clear.
I am. I've
I
got your email right
responded
here.
to your
I could
email
read
and I
it.
said I didn't suggest anybody. That was a company that said they would review the RFP. So you read
They're a
exactly what it.
financial
No,
planner.
but actually, if you call them, they actually have a broader scope.
I went to
And
the
they said,
website.
but they said they'd review it. That's all I told you, Mike.
Well, you don't want them to review it. They're not even CPAs.
Well, Mike, I'm not gonna argue with you on
Okay.
what the discussion
not-
was.
Oh,
I actually.
My goal, all I'm saying is that it's never been the intent to usurp the commissioner's authority. You pick the auditor, period. The only thing we wanted to do, we will advise you on the stuff that should be in the RFP. You go after the external auditors, we can advise you that way. And all I wanted to do is make sure that we don't have people in the county libeling our external auditor. That was the entire point.
I think that's enough for me. Go ahead and please
You know,
put your
actu-
motion on the floor.
Actually, I want to clarify because I don't
Please do.
understand kind of what just happened here. So I respectfully and politely sent an email to the clerk and legal, and I expressed very transparently having some difficulty identifying a firm that wanted to audit Bonner County. Some declined due to politics. And so I had said that I have been going kind of through the list of people that were potentially people that could audit. I mentioned the name of a company that said that it's not something that they do often. It's something that they have considered doing. I don't know whether or not it would be the right person or not, because what the motion was, it wasn't that Asia chooses. So the week before, what it was I was going to gather information and specifically stated, present it to the community and the board. It was not Asia's going to decide anything. I also expressed concerns over the fact that I was trying to get Kootenai County has an auditor that does audit their fair board. I was trying to get them to agree to audit what we had. And so the initial email to Clerk Rosedale was very transparent and just explaining, this is what I found as I'm looking. So whether or not White Pine says, I would look at your RFP and maybe Clerk Rosedale is right, maybe it's not the right thing. I wasn't making a decision. I am just trying to get people that are willing to look at what we have to offer. I don't know how we're going to achieve that, but it wasn't something of I'm making a decision and this is a poor recommendation. I actually specifically responded to Clerk Rosedale saying, this isn't a recommendation. When I talked to them on the phone, they said that they were moving to do this type of work and they would look at specifically what we were talking about. My email actually specifically said to Bill Wilson, you said that you were going to draft the RFP. When would that be done? It wasn't Asia drafting it. It was Wilson drafting it and then submitting it to the companies that said that they'd look at it. The communication broke down from there over just a request for the RFP to fax. We don't have many options of people to do this type of work. I don't know the complete breadth. I actually emailed and said, if Clerk Rosedale wanted to identify, I don't care. We need to move forward. It has been years of what's happened in the fair. We have not audited, and I just want to move forward with an audit. What I did was actually completely reasonable and very transparent. I didn't select anybody. I've actually been calling everybody I can think of with recommendations that I received from people that say, these people might be able to help you. It might not be the biggest thing they do, but give a call.
So am I to understand you've been having ex parte communication with auditing firms without
I believe that's the
speaking
word
to
you're
the
looking for.
entire board of
No.
county
Do
commissioners?
you guys are you guys forgetting that I brought it before the board? It was motioned and it received unanimous decision that I would make calls to auditing firms to see if they would receive an RFP. So I don't understand. what-
I don't recall that, but
I do not recall
I don't
that.
recall that.
It,
So
so
may I?
if,
Uh,
is anybody else in this room remember, let's
Can I
move
use
forward with the audit. It hit
Yes,
the
you may,
newspaper.
Mr. Rosedale.
It literally hit the newspaper saying that we all agreed to do the full audit. And so there isn't, I'm just saying the committee itself as formed isn't appropriate per council. Do we get rid of the committee and decide how to move forward? But we need to move forward. I am no longer reaching out to anybody because I don't want to burn bridges unnecessarily. I don't care who does it. We need it done. This
You don't
isn't.
care who burns bridges?
So let me
Rosedale.
jump in here. Let
So
me jump in here.
I would just like to say, call the question. It's
I-
what you're doing is not appropriate, Luke. All I said was we need someone, but this particular thing that happened, legal didn't advise. We have an executive session to move forward.
Thank you, Commissioner Williams. Clerk Rosedale.
So, as far as having somebody else try to vet potential external auditors, first of all, that should be a board that should go out RFP and RFQ. RFQ for the qualified people to respond to the RFP, our request for proposal. The one thing I have a hard time with is there has been an unbelievable slam against my office, against my comptroller, and against our external auditor. And it's based on completely erroneous information, and Commissioner Williams knows this. One, it's been claimed that fraud was not disclosed by my office for the external audit for the 2022 year. That is complete falsehood. I overly disclosed this fraud. Commissioner Williams known this, but she still is saying we have to do a study and find out what went wrong. Why? Wait, let me finish. This goes to the heart of the issue. Then there is a question of, well, why was that? We have to find out why the Fair Board wasn't audited. Why were they excluded? The prosecutor's office with Bill Wilson was in the decision, and he made the decision February 14th to not audit that. And yet you ignore that. Why would I want somebody that has ignored that and not come to the public to defend my office? You have been staying silent this entire time, letting the slander go on about our external audit, our internal audit, my entire office. You remain silent. Why, Commissioner Williams?
So Clerk Rosedale, you're saying that because I haven't reviewed, this is not something that occurred.
You have been silent and you want to be the one picking an external auditor?
No, I did not. So
That's exactly what you said.
that is. So at no time did I say I want to be the one to pick an external auditor. At no
You're
time did I.
vetting them.
No, I didn't say I was vetting them. So I don't understand what your position is when the person that was going to write the RFP is Bill Wilson. I was just making the phone calls, and I actually drew your attention to, if you go back to the meeting, how many times you jumped up and said, I agree with Commissioner
We
Williams.
need an external audit for sure.
So I am not, how is my request for, let's just move forward with the external audit, something that's negative? It is not my intention to do anything.
You're missing the point. The
No,
point is
I-
that you are trying to make contact and you are the one that's staying silent while you know an injustice has been done.
What?
That is my
There has-
point.
I have not
Well,
made.
can we
any-
bring us,
What?
let's try to de-escalate all people. We are here to be civil. We are listening, and it is challenging. We are not at public comment, Ms. Anderson. There has been no motion on the floor. There has been no second. I apologize, but that is not the way this works. Yes, I am looking for comedy. I am looking for civility. We will get there, but we have Mr. Rosedale. Thank you, both Commissioner Williams and Clerk Rosedale. All right. Do you have anything left, Mr. Rosedale? Thank you,
So-
Clerk Rosedale. Commissioner, back to you.
So what my request is for something we all need is just an audit. I have not made any comment about the clerk's office in a negative way. In the meeting where we discussed the audit, I was very clear multiple times of the need to make sure that the audit was in line with what the clerk's office needed, with what the treasurer needed. Even in this email exchange, at one point I emailed Bill Wilson and say, if the clerk would like to do the call to see if they're willing to accept the piece of paper is all I was doing. There's no conversation about what we're working on. It's just do you do this? Can I send it that direction? And I'll point out, I don't know why it hasn't happened, but it hasn't happened. I didn't make any negative comment about the clerk's office. So to say because I didn't say the clerk's office has done something wrong means I'm a bad person, it's not reasonable. I wasn't a commissioner when this problem took place. And it is true. What happened in the fair where we have a concern over missing money that also resulted in somebody ending their life? We need to figure out what happened. And it doesn't mean the clerk's office did something wrong. It doesn't mean that the commissioners did something wrong. It is actually a standard practice. You will not be able to point to me saying anything negative about Clerk Rosedale and the auditing or Mrs. Twynham and her function as comptroller. I brought this to the board and it was met with a significant amount of support from Clerk Rosedale. I don't care who contacts these people. And I said that in the email. I asked Bill Wilson, if Clerk Rosedale would feel more comfortable doing this, is this reasonable and appropriate? He asked that I send it as an official question. I sent it as an official question. To hang your hat on, I'm supposed to make a finding, that's not reasonable to me. I have not reviewed anything, but I also have never said anything negative. This assignment, the big problem here, and you've seen it on this board, is that I am not going to discount and make negative comments about employees that have lawsuits. And I don't disagree, the way in which some of the communication is harmful to the county. But to say that I'm the reason because I won't say something is not reasonable to me. My request for an audit originally from clerk's office was met with support. What I requested was met with a unanimous decision. Why there's a deviation after that week, I have no idea what happened.
I'd like to address that when you're ready.
I would put forward to, if you guys agree that we need the audit, which one of you guys have been reaching out to firms?
None of us have.
Nobody, because the motion was passed that I was going to make phone calls to see if people would do it, an audit. That's why.
That
And
is
so
inaccurate, Commissioner Williams.
I reported back to the county some of the struggles I was having with third party. That's all. You don't even have to request the record. You can just email me and say, I want to see the email that you sent.
I have one comment on it.
Before you, so I now recall I was in Boise. That was one of the meetings. And what was brought forward to the board was they need to conduct an audit of the fairgrounds, which was voted on unanimously. There was nothing in that. And I was confused because sometimes there are muddled motions and I've made them because sometimes I muddle. And I apologize to the people for my muddling. It'll happen again because I'm a muddler. But what nothing got muddled is at no time did this commissioner delegate to any other commissioner, nor will I, my duty to the taxpayers in regards to that. And to not pretend when Clerk Rosedale's office has been defamed, the actions of some employees have been defamed. I mean, I don't know how to misunderstand this. This is from the Fair Board. The Board of County Commissioners, through use of the Bonner County Internal Auditor staff, owes statutory duties to the County Fair Board to supervise the County Fair Board's official conduct. These duties include the duty to internally and externally audit, inspect, and oversee County Fair Board books and accounts. These statutory duties were breached, in some cases willfully, in fiscal year 2022, and there is no sign that these duties won't continue to be breached, thereby harming the County Fair Board by disabling it from obtaining proper financial control over its operations. For example, the completely unjustifiable failure of the BOCC. I wasn't there last year. This is from an employee who was there that I believe in today's meeting you defended and also said that there was no communication saying that he represented you. The BOCC is and was required to cause an external audit of the County Fair Board for fiscal year 2022. But yet our legal counsel, Bill Wilson, advised on February 14th, no, that is not the contractual obligation. I get dizzy trying to understand from some attorneys who work for Bonner County. The BOCC has no authority. The BOCC cannot touch this. The BOCC must touch this. Going back to April, the BOCC is not accountable. The BOCC is accountable. And then we hear stories, oh, there's no allegations. I'm holding them in my hand and I'll read them and Clerk Rosedale brings them forward. In summary, the BOCC and the clerk neglected their duties to the County Fair Board as outlined in Idaho Code. I don't know, for failing to comply with the following Idaho codes, Idaho Code 31-802. I brought this forward
It's not,
The-
it's not an email from me. The only thing that we're talking about is the need for an audit. And so it isn't reasonable that this is having this much discussion. And if you actually go back to that meeting, the discussion was that I was gonna call around to see how we could get an audit. You guys are trying to adjudicate a real problem within the county, but you're combining it with this issue. Clerk Rosedale is saying because I said nothing, I'm not a good objective individual. You're saying because the Fair Board said something, they're negative. And then you're saying because,
I don't think that's what I said, but thank you for speaking for me.
so the only question here is the audit committee.
You have a motion to put on the floor?
I'm gonna finish speaking.
I-
Even in your discussion right there, you use the opportunity to be disrespectful to me sitting here. It's not reasonable. The only thing I'm saying is you received a legal opinion that the audit committee, the way it was constructed, isn't reasonable. You received an opinion from Bill Wilson saying he will not sit on this audit committee and that he didn't even know this was being formed. If you want to do this, consult your attorney. We would actually be disbanding it. And then if the clerk and the treasurer and the two board members want to formulate a committee related to auditing, why not do it with the support of Bill Wilson to address all of the concerns? What was put forth in the explanation was one wherein it removed my right as a commissioner. I don't care how it comes to be. The opinion from Lewis Marshall was you are delegating duties from a commissioner to your committee and then not allowing me to communicate. I don't care. We just need the audit. Me not saying something isn't akin to me saying something negative. I am not doing anything other than what should have already happened. We need an audit. I'm not in charge of a Fair Board member sending a letter to somebody or posting. I'm not responsible for an employee saying something. You guys are assigning everything you don't like fair related as I'm the kingpin on this. I want the audit, and quite frankly, the audit will resolve all of these issues. All of these issues would be resolved, but the biggest issue it would bring forward is how we move forward as a county, because it isn't fair if Clerk Rosedale had no wrongdoing, but to have people saying he didn't do his business correctly. The best thing to do that isn't my comment, it's actually the audit. And it's not circling, it is actually being very specific to the issue at hand, and the issue at hand is only your committee is not recommended, and it won't do what you think it does. I have said more than once, we need to make sure we meet the expectations of Clerk Rosedale, and it's recorded, it's on tape, you can go back and listen to it.
So
I would like to call the question so we can move on to executive session. We have
that's
another
nice.
meeting at 1.
Is there I'm not prepared to second I'd like to respond with the code. Are you prepared to second the motion to call the question?
I'm prepared to make one comment.
Oh, please do, Commissioner.
Okay. First of all, county commissioners cannot go out and solicit people for proposals.
Like Farm Bureau Insurance, Luke. Yeah.
If
it's
I
just
go out and
inconsistent.
solicit for an auditor and speak to different companies, when they submit proposals, I would have to recuse myself from that selection process to avoid the accusation of quid pro quo. It would be in a commissioner's best interest, have they been doing that, to make a list of those that they have contacted so that when the selection process comes forward, they can recuse themselves on that particular proposal to avoid them being in trouble for something else. That's the only comment I got on that, but no, I have no second.
All right, so see, the Board of County 31-1701, audit of county finances. The Board of County Commissioners of every county shall cause to be made annually a full and complete audit of the financial transactions of the county. Such audit shall be made by and under the direction of the Board of County Commissioners as required in section 67-450B. The Board of County Commissioners held a meeting properly agendized, properly noticed. There was no delegation of authority that was inferred. And the Board of County Commissioners chose to have the audit committee. Mr. Rosedale.
So, to Asia's main point, I don't know if there was an audit committee 11 years ago, 12 years ago when it was picked. I don't know if we need an audit committee. My whole hope was that we don't lose another external auditor to slander, and I wanted to filter that. Asia has not slandered them. I'm not saying Asia has. Clarissa, myself, Nancy is willing to work with all you and Bill Wilson to come up with an RFP. The only reason I wanted an audit committee was to filter the comments going to our external auditor, which has made them 99% sure they're not going to even quote this year. That was the only thing. As far as not having an audit committee, I'm okay with not having an audit committee.
You have a motion for us, Commissioner?
I move to disband the audit committee.
Is there a second? Hearing none, the motion dies. It is 12:33 and this meeting is recessed for 10 minutes to move upstairs where we will proceed into executive session.